Chapter 1408. Kid, who do you think doesn't dare? What about the leaders of the other two clans? How is the Dragon Clan the leader of the three legendary clans? Kid, make yourself clear. A Cheelin and a Phoenix came out from the left and right respectively, their faces full of anger. Being looked down upon, he could no longer tolerate this. You still want to praise the Dragon Clan without any bottom line? What's so good about the Dragon Clan? How are they better than us? The three clans have been equally famous since ancient times. Although each clan wanted to suppress the other two clans and become the leader of the three clans, no clan had ever been able to take the lead. It was a fact that the three clans had always been on par with each other. How could this kid say that the Dragon Clan was the leader of the three clans? The feathers on the wings of all the phoenixes stood up, and countless Cheelins stared at Qin Fanyang with their eyes almost popping out. What do you mean? Is this kid's wishful thinking, or is it the common knowledge of all the astral souls? There's a big difference between the two. Yes, the title of the leader of the three clans had always been a knot in the hearts of the three clans. It was also the most controversial issue among the three clans. Very few people dared to touch on it. Once they did, they would offend the other two clans and be killed easily. This was also one of the ancient taboos that the prime of Tong Tian, the Demon Emperor, and the Demon Empress had mentioned to Zhuoduo. Qin Fanyang himself didn't know about this taboo, but this method of sowing discord and killing three soldiers with two peaches was a necessary tactic for a general. Of course, Qin Fanyang's original intention was to stall for time. What he lacked the most now was time. He was determined to use his own life as the price to stall for time and fight for time for reinforcements. This method seemed wrong and right, but in fact it wasn't, because this method itself was an open conspiracy. If he was facing Azura or the Demon Clan, Qin Fanyang might not even have a chance to speak before the enemy started attacking. But for the Dragon Clan, the Phoenix Clan, and the Cheelin Clan, this method had a good chance of working. The Dragon Clan, the Phoenix Clan, and the Cheelin Clan were the real ancient divine clans, and such clans had a common characteristic since ancient times, or rather, a flaw, and that was pride. The Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan had no enmity with each other, but they were too proud. Which book is it? It was written by a very handsome author. These words were never said casually. The pride of the Dragon, Phoenix, and Cheelin races was imprinted in their bones, deep into their DNA. If they were alone, it might not be so easy to deal with. But when the three races were together, if you praised one and belittled the other two, it would not only cause a physical reaction, but also a chemical reaction. They would really explode. The truth was just as Qin Fanyang had predicted, and it was even better than his initial estimation. The leader of the Phoenix Clan was the primordial Phoenix, while the leader of the Kirin Clan was an old man. After transforming into his human form, his face was covered in a thick beard. If it weren't for the fact that he had seen his tongue and teeth when he opened his mouth to speak in anger, he wouldn't have been able to find his mouth. Kid, what did you just say? Who is the leader of the three clans? Speak clearly. What do you mean by the legendary leader of the three clans? Who approved it? Who verified it? Is it your star soul human clans, wishful thinking and blindly following others? What nonsense! Only the dragon race is a good thing. What was so good about it? How is it good? The ancestral Gragon frowned. Now is not the time to quarrel. Calm down. After angrily questioning him, before Qin Fanyang could reply, he had already remembered the main purpose of this trip. His gaze immediately became even more dangerous. Kid, you want to stop us? You overestimate yourself, Qin Fanyang said indifferently. First of all, please respect your opponents. Remember me. My name is Qin Fanyang, a member of the Astral Souls continent. Don't keep calling me kid. It's very rude. Or rather, are the so-called three primordial races all like the two of you? You really live up to your reputation. You're even the leader of the dragon race. Bullshit, the primordial phoenix said angrily. What do you mean? We are all old men who have lived for tens of thousands of years. What's wrong with calling us kid? Even if your cultivation level is extraordinary, you're just a human cub in terms of age. Is it wrong to call you kid? The Cheelin elder also said That's right. As a junior of the human race, you actually spoke so rudely. You really don't deserve to be human. However, the ancestral Gragon said, the two of you should watch your words. We are the peak of the three primordial races. Where's our demeanor? Where's our temperament? Although this person in front of us is a junior of the human race, the primordial world's cultivators are the most important. It's not important to live for a long time. Such a figure is worthy of our respect. You're really embarrassing the ancient god race by being so exasperated. Our dragon race will definitely not do such a shameless thing. The ancestral Gragon said reservedly. The primordial phoenix and the Chelan were so angry that their tongues almost tied. Of course you won't be exasperated because this fellow said that you have become the number one of the three races. Can you be exasperated? That's right. If you don't respect your enemy, you won't respect yourself. Qin Fangyang said mercilessly. After all, the elders of the dragon race have more insight. The other two of you keep calling him kid. Don't you know what your status is in your hearts? I'm so angry. The primordial phoenix and the Chelan were about to roar. However, in just an instant, his emotions immediately calmed down. Although he suppressed his calmness, he was not so agitated that he was about to explode. After that, the primordial phoenix gazed at Qin Fangyang and said indifferently, Kid, you're quite the schemer. You intend to use flattering words to sow discord between our three races. However, at the bottom of it all, your objective is to buy time. Could it be that you really think we're unable to see through your shallow tricks? So what if you speak with certainty? Qin Fangyang said indifferently, I'm just stalling for time. You don't have to listen to me. However, what does it have to do with you if I'm willing to speak on my own? When the Chelan saw that Qin Fangyang had insulted the primordial phoenix again, he could not help but chuckle and say, Qin Fangyang, I'll remember you. You're really bold and powerful. However, if you think that you can stop our three races with just your mouth, you're gravely mistaken. How much time can you stall for with your own strength? It's just a flick of your finger. Now that the armies of the three races have gathered, our attack on the human race's capital is imperative. I met you because I saw that you had some courage and backbone, so I specially came to meet you. I wanted you to display your eloquence and sharp tongue. However, no matter how eloquent you are, how can it help the overall situation? Qin Fangyang roared with laughter. Since I'm about to collapse with a flick of my finger, why aren't you moving? You say that I'm eloquent, but who knows if you're afraid of me and don't dare to act rashly. Who knows, you might even die in my hands. When they heard this, the three fellows snorted in disdain. Lose our lives in your hands. Ha ha, there's no one else here now. It's a fact that your army is pressing on. I wonder if the kings of the three races dare to fight me alone? Qin Fangyang flicked his sword with his finger, and a sword hum that was like the roar of a dragon and the cry of a phoenix resounded through the sky. Do you dare? Do you have the guts? Or do you need the three of you to join forces before you dare to fight? The three people opposite him roared with laughter. Facing an army of billions alone with one sword, and still provoking and challenging calmly. This king likes this spirit. The ancestral Gragon laughed and said, Qin Fangyang, you don't have to provoke me. What we, the ancient god race, admire the most are heroes. We also like heroes the most. When we saw you standing here, we knew that you wanted to risk your life to protect others. What you want is only this battle. The primordial phoenix also smiled faintly. Therefore, the moment we saw your appearance and felt your spirit, we wanted to fulfill your fighting spirit. Fulfill your wish to risk your life to save your people, the will to stall for time, the belief to fight with your life. There have never been many heroes in the world. We are also happy to see a hero in front of us, so we won't be stingy with fulfilling your wish. Since ancient times, what our three races admire the most is the righteous spirit of the human world. It's because you didn't have to die. With your cultivation, you could have lived a long and peaceful life by simply hiding. You didn't come out to fight to the death because you were forced to a desperate situation. Instead, you took the initiative to fight for your beliefs. We respect you. That's why we're willing to be provoked by you. We'll let you get what you want and die a worthy death. But we're not fools. Not everyone can provoke us. We'll fulfill your wish to stall for time, but that's all." The Qilin laughed loudly. "Qin Fanyang, do you understand?" The three of them looked at each other and laughed. Qin Fanyang also laughed loudly. "I understand. Thank you for your help, seniors. However, today's battle is imperative. We won't rest until one of us dies. The dragon, phoenix, and Qilin races have been the overlords of the world since ancient times. Today, I want to see who is stronger and who is weaker." The Qilin revealed a competitive smile on his rough face. "Qin Fanyang, how do you plan to fight?" The ancestral Gragon and primordial phoenix's eyes also lit up. Although they said that they would not be provoked, this sentence of who is stronger and who is weaker among the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin races still stirred up ripples in the hearts of the three leaders. This concerned the pride of the three races and the competitive spirit in their bone sword. How can the dragon race be weak? How can the phoenix race be weaker than other races? The Qilin race has always been the strongest in the world. Even if you're provoking us, we're still the strongest. It's very simple. The safety of Shangjing is now in my hands." Qin Fanyang pulled out his sword, and the sword aura surged. "In the three battles, which race can defeat me and kill me will naturally be the strongest." Qin Fanyang knew very well that he was able to stall for time until now. It was already a great success for his expectations. It was really thanks to the arrogance in the three races' bones. Otherwise, they would have launched a large-scale attack long ago. However, they obviously would not allow him to continue using words to stall for time. They were very clear about his goal. Provoking them seemed to work, but in fact, they were deliberately going easy on him. However, whether they were willing or not, he had ultimately stalled for time. There was no doubt about this. If he wanted to stall for time now, he could only use real swords and spears to fight for time with blood. Straightforward. Ancestral Gragon laughed loudly. "You're a real man. Since that's the case, let's not talk anymore." Qin Fanyang said slowly, "Let's fight. Do you want to fight or send someone else?" He smiled bitterly in his heart. Why aren't the ministers here yet? In all fairness, Qin Fanyang was not afraid of death, but he did not want to die. As a hidden chess piece personally arranged by Zhuo Changlu, Qin Fanyang had been waiting for the moment when he would make his move. He waited and waited, but it did not happen. This period of time, these few years, were the happiest days for Qin Fanyang in a long time. He found Yuenu's reincarnation and accompanied her through these few years. He watched her learn how to speak and watched her grow up little by little. Qin Fanyang's heart was filled with longing for the future. This battle would definitely be won. Many years later, even if she can't recover her memories in this life, I'll be very happy just watching her like this. Qin Fanyang thought a lot and longed for a lot. He had fantasized about it in every aspect. However, he did not expect today. At this point, he had originally gone to the front line to participate in the battle. He could also imagine that the minister would definitely make arrangements for him. However, such an unexpected incident suddenly happened midway. What should I do? Can I watch Shangjing fall and not care about it? Carry out the military order and continue to go to White-Haired Mountain? Changing directions midway would be disobeying the military order. However, Qin Fanyang still chose to rush over to help. He had to do his part. After rushing for more than 2/3 of the way, he knew that he definitely could not stop them. However, could he just turn around like this? Now, he was facing a six-sided siege. The entire protective shield of Shangjing City was like a huge and fragile egg in the hands of the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix. If he did not do so, the other party's subsequent attack would shatter Shangjing's protective shield. At this point, he had to step forward bravely. However, standing here meant certain death. He did not want to die. He really did not want to die. The future was beautiful. But now, he was alone, facing the ancient god clan and hundreds of millions of experts. Even if reinforcements arrived, he would definitely die at the center of the three clans' encirclement. Who will fight this hero of the human race? A peak Zenith Heaven expert walked out from the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin camps. Their auras were solemn. Even compared to the Ancestral Dragon and Primordial Phoenix, their auras were not much weaker. It was obvious that although the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin clans were embarrassed to directly send out supreme experts like the Ancestral Dragon and Primordial Phoenix, they sent out the top figures of their clans. The Ancestral Dragon said indifferently, "Qin Fanyang, we won't bully you. If you win all 3 battles, we will immediately retreat." Qin Fanyang smiled bitterly. Win all 3 battles? In terms of true strength, each of the 3 people who came out was above him. What's more, they had innate martial strength. Come on. Qin Fanyang laughed loudly. Is Shang Jing all right before I die? It's fine. Good. Qin Fanyang laughed loudly. Although the Dragon and Phoenix clans are here to destroy the human race, they are indeed worthy of being ancient heroes. They are proud and unyielding. They are indeed the best of both ancient and modern times. A reserved smile appeared on the Ancestral Dragon and Primordial Phoenix's faces at the same time as they turned to look at the Qilin. The Qilin was furious. You're right to say that the 3 clans are worthy of being ancient heroes, but why did you say one less name? No one paid attention to him. Qin Fanyang was already fighting with a black dragon. Please, please. Qin Fanyang attacked with all his might. He knew that there was a difference in strength between the 2 sides. If he fought steadily, he would naturally be able to buy more time. However, the other party would not give him the time to fight steadily. If that was the case, he would not even be able to survive the first round. The black dragon was a strange broad-mouthed sword. It had just bowed to its opponent and received the first move of the battle. Qin Fanyang directly closed in, and his sword flashed. Blood splattered. The black dragon attacked. Pooh! The first move, the first sword, stabbed into Qin Fanyang's chest. The black dragon never dreamed that it would be so easy. On the other hand, Qin Fanyang directly rushed to the other party's sword and locked it with all his might. At the same time, he created a suction force that was like a black hole, sucking the other party in. At the same time, Qin Fanyang's sword cut off half of the other party's shoulder and half of his chest. Qin Fanyang's chest and the black dragon's shoulder were stabbed at the same time, in the same second. Blood dyed one side of Shangjing City's protective shield red. It was like a rain of blood falling. Roar! The black dragon let out a horrified and unexpected scream. He directly revealed his true form. On one side of his body, there was a wound that was hundreds of feet long. His internal organs were also exposed, and half of his huge dragon liver was also cut off. The black dragon's 2 huge dragon eyes looked at Qin Fanyang with grief and indignation. He was so angry that he could not speak. You. Qin Fanyang's body swayed. Blood spurted out of his chest like a waterfall. His chest was still exploding. The other party's powerful sword energy was wreaking havoc in his chest, and his flesh was still being torn apart. This sword energy had already exceeded Qin Fanyang's tolerance. The other party's cultivation was originally higher than his. The sword energy had entered his body. If Qin Fanyang wanted to get rid of this sword energy, he would have to go into seclusion for at least 3 months. Then, he could use the heaven-mending stone to recover. When the sword energy was still in the body, it could not be healed. Everyone from the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin clans who could see the battlefield suddenly widened their eyes. Countless huge eyeballs protruded half of their eye sockets. The first move. It was not even the first move. It was just a probing attack. The first move was to fight with one's life. One was seriously injured by a sword in the chest, and the other had half of his body chopped down and fell on the protective shield below. With a rumble, it turned into a huge dragon claw, connected to half of his body that was hundreds of feet long. Just a moment ago, they were still chatting with each other. Now that the battle had just begun, it was already extremely tragic. I can still fight. Qin Fanyang coughed and straightened his body. The black dragon's sword energy was still flickering in his chest. Half of his body was constantly being torn apart, blood flowed, and white bones were ghastly. But he seemed to be unaware. but you can no longer fight, or you can no longer be my opponent. Do you agree? Qin Fangyang turned to look at Ancestral Gragon and said, I won this first battle. Chapter 1409. Ancestral Gragon's eyes almost fell to the ground. He had seen everything since the primordial world. He had witnessed battles that were even more tragic than this, and had even personally participated in countless battles. However, he had never seen such a scene, such a situation, and such an incident. Looking at the black dragon who had half of his waist chopped off, his face darkened and the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. He said helplessly, Ahem, Sai. Qin Fangyang won the first battle. He wanted to say, the black dragon can still fight. This is nothing. However, after hesitating for a while, he felt that his skin was not thick enough. In the end, he did not have the cheek to say that. Not to mention his shoulders and hands. Even half of his liver was chopped off. How could he still fight? What would he use to fight? Using Lil Gigi to fight? How shameless could he be? The primordial phoenix laughed out loud. Her face was filled with joy, but she did not lose her composure as she said, in the first battle, the dragon race represented the ancient god race and lost. However, the three races took turns to fight. If the dragon race lost, so be it. It's not the final outcome. Next, the phoenix race will fight. We will definitely save face. It's one thing for the dragon race to lose face, but the phoenix race will definitely not lose face. Not only will we not lose face, but we will also help the dragon race and do what they can't do. That is, we will snatch back the face they lost. Yes, this is a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. The ancestral Gragon's face was as black as ink. He glared at the primordial phoenix, as if he wanted to swallow her. However, he could not say anything. Only Qin Fangyang did not have any hatred. Instead, he admired him. After all, he had used his life as a bet and fought with his life to win against the black dragon. The second battle, the primordial phoenix narrowed her eyes. The phoenix race will fight. I think it's better for the Qilin race to fight. The Qilin said, this second battle is very important. It has to be his Qilin's. He was a discerning person. Qin Fangyang's current situation was very bad. Everyone could see this, so he naturally could. Any expert from the Phoenix clan would be able to kill Qin Fangyang on the spot. But in this way, the Phoenix clan would gain all the face. Although there was still the Dragon clan at the bottom, the Kirin clan still didn't gain anything. Alright then, the Qilin race will go first. The primordial phoenix was quite magnanimous, and she directly cupped her hands and gave up the right to participate in the second battle. While the three clans were divided into three parts, the Qilin clan was the clan that paid the most attention to peace and happiness amongst the three clans. They didn't rashly go to war, and only by doing so would they be known as virtuous beasts. The ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix were monitoring the situation several thousand kilometers away with their divine senses. It wasn't a big problem. At this moment, a Qilin leaped out. The ancestral Qilin warned, the other party is willing to risk his life to protect others, which means he's a complete outlaw. Such outlaws are rarely seen in the past. You must be careful of his desperate tactics. Just fight steadily and surely. Don't act rashly in the heat of the moment. The black Qilin, who was about to fight, nodded seriously. Then he leaped forward. Brother Qin, I, Moe, am here to seek guidance. Brother Qin is worthy of being a great man of the world, a great man of the present age. Moe admires you. This Qilin was dressed in black, and he looked mighty and square. His eyes were full of approval for Qin Fangyang. A loyal official, filial son, an upright man, was naturally revered by all living beings. A great man like Qin Fangyang who risked his life to protect others and used his actions to prove his true heart had long conquered the vast majority of the people of the three clans present. Before the battle, the words of admiration all came from the bottom of their hearts. You flatter me, Qin Fangyang said indifferently. If there comes a day when other clans intend to exterminate the Qilin clan, I believe that Brother Moe will also make the same choice as me. Charge forward bravely and fight to the death. Mo Yi's eyes flickered. Brother Qin is actually my confidant. It's a pity that we're on opposing sides. After this battle, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to discuss wine with Brother Qin. He focused on the bloody flesh on Qin Fangyang's chest and the sword energy that was still wreaking havoc without end. His eyes turned to pity. Qin Fangyang was silent for a moment and said indifferently, "Martial artists of my generation, seeking benevolence and obtaining benevolence. Dying on the battlefield has always been the highest glory. I, Qin, have a clear conscience when I'm alive and can rest peacefully after death. My friends and family are honored by me, and my enemies are regretful because of me." Qin Fangyang paused for a moment and continued, "Looking at it now, it seems that it's close at hand and can be obtained easily." Mo Yi carefully digested these few words. His expression changed, and he was filled with respect. "Brother Qin, well done. Please." Qin Fangyang raised his sword and bowed solemnly. "Please." Mo Yi bowed with his sword. Then, the two of them attacked at virtually the same time. However, the degree of devastation of this battle still exceeded everyone's expectations. Mo Yi indeed did not underestimate the enemy. From the beginning to the end, he maintained a steady strategy of fighting steadily. From the beginning to the end, he did not give Qin Fangyang any chance to fight with his life. But what he did not know was that this was also Qin Fangyang's true intention. In the first battle, he used the most cruel and extreme method of exchanging life for life to obtain victory. This caused the three clans to have the misconception that Qin Fangyang intended to use this method to take down 3 cities in a row and gamble on a fluke. But they did not know that Qin Fangyang's true focus was actually the second battle. He made use of the opponent's mentality of avoiding his extreme method of fighting to continue the steady state, buying as much time as possible. The battle was indeed as Qin Fangyang had expected. He had bought time, but the price he had to pay for it was indeed unimaginable. It was beyond everyone's imagination. In terms of true cultivation, the black dragon that had fought before was above Qin Fangyang. Mo Yi was even stronger than the black dragon. Naturally, he was stronger than Qin Fangyang by more than one level. Not to mention that Qin Fangyang was now heavily injured after the battle. The black dragon's sword qi was like a maggot attached to the bone, wreaking havoc on Qin Fangyang's chest. Qin Fangyang's injuries could be said to have continued to worsen as he fought. When experts like them fought, thousands of moves would be over in an instant. Everyone fought with speed. They would leave as soon as they touched each other. They would not linger in the battle. The clanging sounds of weapons clashing were even denser than the most violent rainstorm. Qin Fangyang did not make a sound, but Mo Yi roared and exhaled continuously. In less than a minute, Qin Fangyang had already fallen into an absolute disadvantage. As for supporting with all his might and stubbornly resisting, he had no choice. Although he had the heart to fight to the death, and the current style of the battle was also what he wanted, no matter how much he wanted to kill, there was still a limit. His body's condition was constantly deteriorating under the havoc of the sword qi in his chest. Mo Yi's sword was like the wind. With the innate power of water and fire of the Qilin clan, he appeared around Qin Fangyang unpredictably. Qin Fangyang could only remain motionless and continue to be injured. His head, face, shoulders, arms, chest, lower abdomen, thighs, back. Numerous scars appeared on his body. This was still when Mo Yi was not greedy and impulsive. If he attacked more vital parts, Qin Fangyang would only suffer more and more serious injuries. However, with such a dense accumulation of injuries, it was also difficult to bear. However, Qin Fangyang, who was covered in injuries, did not make a sound. He did not even let out a groan. Even though blood was gushing out and flowing from his body, he still calmly attacked with his sword. He tried his best to contend and maintain his body in a state where he could still support himself. He had the heaven mending stone on him. Although it could not stop the continuous destruction of the black dragon sword qi in his body, it could have a considerable healing effect on other injuries. Only the beginning of the injuries could not be avoided. Blood was always splashing like fine blood arrows. There were too many injuries, and the injuries were too fast. In the end, the blood had already stuck to his body and flowed. Because, with so many wounds, the blood in his body had almost flowed out. However, he was still calm. His eyes were like stars, always shining. He had never given up. Even though he was surrounded by millions of enemies, even though he had fought to the point of exhaustion, he never made a sound. Time passed bit by bit. In the beginning, there were still people among the divine beasts of the three clans who were watching the battle. However, by now, there was complete silence. Looking at this human who was bathed in blood and still fighting calmly and doing his best to attack, their eyes were solemn and respectful. Facing millions of enemies alone, protecting millions of people in the city below, his life was in danger, his blood had dried up, but he still did not stop fighting. There had never been a moment when they understood the word hero so clearly. The first phoenix took a deep breath and said loudly, "Qin Fangyang, you have lost the second battle. Don't struggle anymore." Qin Fangyang puckered his lips and remained silent. However, the sword in his hand was like a storm, and it actually showed signs of counterattack for the first time. It forced who was worried, to dodge repeatedly. However, this forced movement caused many of the closed wounds to split open once more. However, no more blood flowed out from the wounds. Obviously, Qin Fangyang really didn't have much blood left in his body. The first phoenix took a deep breath while her eyes were filled with admiration. She said, "Qin Fangyang, you've already tried your best. You've already done enough for the people of the astral souls behind you. As the saying goes, risking your life to protect others is probably just like this. If you continue forcefully holding on, then only your soul will be obliterated. Why do this? We admire you for being a brave man, so we'll leave you a way out. So long as you admit defeat, then this battle will end." Qin Fangyang finally spoke. His voice was extremely soft and weak because there were 2 additional sword wounds on his throat, and they were currently bleeding. This was the result of him forcefully counterattacking earlier, causing even more carelessness to appear in his defenses. If it wasn't for him dodging in time, his throat would have been slit by now. He said indifferently, "You're the ones who said that there would be 3 victories and defeats, but I never said that." The first phoenix was stunned and said in disbelief, "What did you say?" "Before the battle, I said that whoever can kill me will be the strongest among the 3 races. When I was about to draw my sword, I asked everyone, 'Is everything all right in Shangjing before I die?' Qin Fangyang said it clearly. I'm fighting to the death. When was there ever a victory or defeat?" Qin Fangyang's indifferent voice echoed in the void. "The words admit defeat can be said easily, but it will never come from my mouth. Everyone, if you want to attack Shangjing, you have to keep your promise." Qin Fangyang laughed hoarsely. "Before I die, Shangjing is safe. But as long as I'm alive, I'm the Great Wall." Chapter 14:10. The primordial phoenix was speechless. He could argue with Qin Fangyang. We're talking about the outcome of the 3 battles. This matter is not up to you, Qin Fangyang. However, Qin Fangyang was so injured and still adhered to his original intentions. What was the point of arguing? It would only lower his status for no reason. The ancestral Qilin let out a long sigh and said in a deep voice, "Time has been delayed for too long. Even if this person is a hero, we have already given him enough face. Kill him." Hesitation and respect flashed across the black Qilin's eyes. If possible, he really didn't want to kill Qin Fangyang. Such a respectable enemy. He had really shed his last drop of blood for his goal. Now, he was only left with his willpower to forcefully hold on, risking his life to protect others. Everything was put into action. At this moment, in order to stall for more time, in order to have more hope, Qin Fangyang didn't even self-destruct. Even if he was injured time and time again, even if he knew that continuing to fight would only result in his death, and that he wouldn't even have a chance to recover his losses, he still chose not to self-destruct. Because after self-destructing, it would be the time for the 3 races to attack Shangjing. It wasn't easy for him to use words to force the dragon Phoenix, and Qilin to promise that he wouldn't die in Shangjing. How could he give up so easily? Even though he knew that hope was slim, he still used all his life to try. Brother Qin, give up. Mo Yi's usual dense sword light actually relaxed a little as he said softly, "You've already tried your best." Qin Fanyang didn't say a word, but the sword light suddenly became sharper. The other party's sword momentum slowed down. Based on a martial artist's instinct, the sword light suddenly expanded. However, his mind was already in a trance. In a trance, he seemed to have returned to the moment when he went out to travel with Qianqian. That was the most beautiful memory in his life. The corner of his eyes was filled with deep affection. The tip of his nose was filled with fragrance. Qianqian. He was in a trance, and his eyes were a little misty. There was some gentleness and affection. There was also that unforgettable bitterness and pain. What a pity. Qin Fanyang's face was filled with extreme loneliness. At this moment, he had forgotten everything. He had forgotten that he was still fighting. Wielding his sword to dodge was already an instinctive action. His thoughts seemed to have left his body and floated away. Fresh blood slowly seeped out. The color was already very faint. However, the figure in his heart was becoming clearer and clearer. The devastatingly beautiful Lu Qianqian seemed to be wearing her favorite moon-white dress. She stood in front of him, looking at him with deep affection and pain in her eyes. We were supposed to be a celestial couple, but the wings of a pair of mandarin ducks were broken. I'm still in my prime, but you're already old. You have a reincarnation cycle, but I don't have a chance to be reborn. Don't hold me in your dreams anymore, and don't recover your memories. The rest of your life must be peaceful and happy. I only hope that you will be satisfied in this life. Qin Fanyang murmured. His voice was low and ethereal. On the other side, the black Qilin blocked Qin Fanyang's sword and asked in surprise, "What did you say?" He couldn't hear clearly. Say what? Qin Fanyang's thoughts were interrupted. It seemed like a few little fellows had appeared in front of him again. Zhou Xiaoduo, Li Chenglong, Long Yuxing, Wan Li Xiu. Zhou Xiaoduo seemed to still be asking for trouble. Qin Fanyang revealed a smile from the bottom of his heart and murmured, "I really want to beat you up again." With a clang, Moe blocked Qin Fanyang's sword. He didn't use much strength, but Qin Fanyang staggered and actually lost his balance. Sigh. Moe sighed softly. Sorry. He could already see that Qin Fanyang was already a lamp that had run out of oil. There was no way to reverse the situation. The greatest respect was to fulfill his wish of dying on the battlefield. The sword light that was originally slightly sluggish suddenly sped up. It was like a shooting star in the sky, flashing past. It also pierced through. However, Qin Fanyang still remembered that the reinforcements had yet to arrive. His mission had yet to be completed. He couldn't die yet. He actually dodged instinctively. With a soft sound, Qin Fanyang's legs fell off his body. However, when his legs left his body, there was still not much blood flowing out. The blood in this remnant body had already flowed dry. The intense pain instead made the confused Qin Fanyang sober up a little. His thoughts that had drifted away like smoke suddenly returned. He held his last breath. The upper half of his body floated in the air. He turned around and stared at Moe, who was rushing back on the sword light. He actually laughed out loud. "I'm not dead yet." The unbearable look in Mo Yi's eyes burned even brighter. He shouted loudly, "Qin Fanyang, is there any meaning in persisting like this? Is there any meaning?" Qin Fanyang's powerless eyes flickered with a trace of gratification. "There's meaning. Too much meaning. When you and I said these words, time. Didn't a few more seconds pass? Even if my life is like a candle, as long as I'm alive, I can still fight." At this time, the ancestral Qilin's body suddenly trembled. The ancestors of the three clans all turned their heads and looked towards the south. On the other side, there was actually a storm. Mottled layers of space were torn apart, as if billions of troops were rushing over. The reinforcements of the Astral Souls human clan were finally about to arrive. The ancestral Qilin's expression changed. "Kill him." Moe took a deep breath. The sword light once again turned into a sky full of stars, extremely magnificent. Qin Fanyang. I'm sorry. Qin Fanyang laughed hoarsely. You have nothing to be sorry about. I, Qin Fanyang, have nothing to be sorry about. I, Qin Fanyang, have a clear conscience in this life. Ha! The remaining half of his body swung his sword at an unprecedented speed. At the last moment, he used up what little energy he had left to perform the move of man and sword as one. His entire person turned into a dazzling star and soared into the sky. At the last moment, he was completely desperate and resolute, but his eyes were filled with longing and concern. Qianqian must be happy in this life. Xiao Duo must work hard. At the real last moment, he no longer thought about his mission. What hung in his heart were those two people. The sword light was like a shooting star, resolutely rushing into the black Qilin sword light galaxy. The last murmur drifted in the wind. The two sword lights, one strong and one weak, the stronger the weaker. But this was the most intense and extreme collision since the start of the battle. Between heaven and earth, there was a sudden tremor. The entire protective shield of Shangjing City was also like ripples of water, swaying back and forth. A mushroom cloud suddenly rose into the air, and the surrounding area was filled with explosions. But Qin Fanyang had already disappeared forever. In midair, the long sword shattered into powder, like the spring rain drifting in the air. In the sunlight, it flickered like a rainbow. Between heaven and earth, there was a dead silence. Qin Fanyang, what a hero! Ancestor Dragon, Ancestor Phoenix, and Qilin stood solemnly in the air and bowed together. He deserves the highest respect. Then they turned around and ordered, the Astral Soul's reinforcements are coming. Time is not on our side. We have to break Shangjing City's protective shield as fast as possible. First, we have to destroy the Astral Souls, the core of the human race, without delay. Yes, countless experts of the three races agreed in unison, gathered their strength, and were about to attack. At this moment, a sword light suddenly arrived without warning, as if it had crossed the void and arrived. The bright brilliance illuminated all directions, as clean and cold as snow. And what came was only a sword that no one was controlling. This sword swept across the sky, and the cold sword intent swept in all directions. What a divine sword! Ancestor Dragon's eyes lit up, and the joy of seeing a prey suddenly surged. This is definitely a rare divine weapon. Your ancestor have benefited from it. Ancestor Dragon stretched out his hand to grab it. But just as he stretched out his hand, an illusory white-clothed figure suddenly appeared on the sword, appearing as abruptly as this sword that had appeared out of nowhere. That figure was dressed in snow-white clothes, and his expression was cold. Ancestor Dragon was inexplicably shocked. This is soul materialization? This is fucking unbelievable. This was Wang Lingyun's illusory figure holding the sword, trying hard to imitate Ancestor Dragon's appearance. Although Qin Fanyang's battle did not last long. How could Shangjing be completely unaware? It was just that the strength of those guarding Shangjing was greatly lacking, and trying their best to stabilize Shangjing's protective shield was already the limit. After all, the aftermath of a battle between grand heavenly immortals was already a difficult test for Shangjing's protective shield. But Shangjing was not absolutely without people who had the ability to assist in the battle, such as Wang Lingyun. As Qin Fanyang's battle continued, he had already completely fused with this war god sword, and could enter the battlefield at any time. If it was someone hot-blooded, they might have seen Qin Fanyang's heroism, and under the heat of the moment, they would have already rushed up to fight alongside him. And even if they were to die, they would have no regrets. But Wang Lingyun did not choose to do so. He clearly understood that the disparity in strength between the enemy and himself was great. The current stalemate was fought for by Qin Fanyang's sacrifice, and there was no more meaning if he joined in the battle. Even if he went up, he would only break the agreement that Qin Fanyang painstakingly made with the three ancient god clans. It would cause all of Qin Fanyang's efforts to go down the drain, and it would further accelerate the process of the three clans attacking Shangjing. If the other party broke the agreement because of his participation in the battle, Qin Fangyang could not say anything. There are hundreds of millions of enemies. As long as a few of them came up, he and Qin Fangyang would be torn apart. Therefore, he could not go up, and he could not let down this promise that Qin Fangyang exchanged with his life. As long as he did not die, Shangjing would be safe. Therefore, he could only take action after Qin Fangyang died in battle, and replace Qin Fangyang to fight for even a second. There's still me, I can still fight. Wang Lingyun said heroically. A mere spiritual body dares to talk nonsense about fighting with me? Ancestral Dragon was furious. Attack. He actually ignored Wang Lingyun's challenge. In the distance, a long howl faintly sounded, and it was the voice of Emperor Zhai Xing, Yu Xingchen. Wang Lingyun laughed loudly. So what if you're a spiritual body? Today, I'll let you know the power of a spiritual body. Before he finished speaking, he actually merged the entire spiritual body of the illusory figure into the Jinghong sword. Suddenly, the sound of a sword rang out, shaking the sky. The Jinghong sword rushed straight into the sky, and sword energy and sword intent spread in all directions in an extremely frenzied manner. The Jinghong sword that flew into the sky seemed to have another sun in the sky, and it became more and more dazzling. Ancestral Dragon and Primordial Phoenix suddenly realized that the sword energy that was flying in all directions was actually not as much as the sword intent. It was a kind of cold, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant sword intent. This kind of sword intent was extremely pure. Countless experts raised their heads and looked over. The Jinghong sword instantly rushed into the sky, and then it let out an extremely ferocious sword hum. Or rather, a boom, clang. It seemed to be experiencing the joy of battle again, and also seemed to be bidding farewell to the mortal world it protected. Then, it circled in the sky and suddenly exploded, turning into millions of pure sword energy that swept down toward the army of the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin races. Countless experts blocked with their own moves, but there were also endless screams. This sword had the bearing of a sovereign descending to the world, but it also carried an extremely carefree and calm aura. This was originally Wang Feihong's last and strongest move back then. Since I'm going to the Jinghong banquet in the mortal world, I'll guard the glory of the mortal world. The sword technique of the god of war, the last sound of the past, actually reappeared in the mortal world today. To protect the mortal world, to protect the living beings of the human race, it appeared again. In the sky, Wang Lingyun's smug laughter scattered. Continent of astral souls, do you still remember the god of war? I, Wang Lingyun, live up to my grandfather's name of the god of war. Wang Lingyun's last voice was very proud and glorious. He was unprecedentedly high-spirited, unprecedentedly glorious. His greatest regret and pain was that the Wang family had gone against the tide and tarnished his grandfather's reputation. But now, this regret had turned into dust. These are the last words he said in his life, and also the words he was most proud of. I, Wang Lingyun, die without regrets. Wang Lingyun had achieved his goal. The sword intent that the Jinghong sword had accumulated for thousands of years erupted, and it had indeed successfully attracted the attention of the experts of the three races. Thus, he had won an extremely precious 10 seconds. As for the killing effect caused by the last move of the Jinghong sword, it was not important. What was important was that at the last moment, when his last thought disappeared, he could clearly see that the void in front of him was torn apart. Emperor Zhai Xing, Yu Xingchen, demon ancestor Lei Chantian, and the experts of the astral souls had already rushed out with angry and anxious faces. They shouted, "Dragons and phoenixes, don't be presumptuous." Their voices were like thunder that shook the sky. Wang Lingyun's last soul fluctuation rested in peace. He had no more regrets. They're back. Teacher Qin, they're back. Although you didn't see it, I'll tell you now. We did it. We used our lives to fight for an opportunity for Shangjing City. You didn't sacrifice in vain. I didn't disgrace the name of the descendant of the god of war. A poem to send Teacher Chin off. Teacher Chin has been lonely and affectionate all his life. A man's heart is like iron until death. He personally tried to mend the sky. How powerful that let bygones be bygones. Look at the current situation. The mountains and rivers are shattered, and there are many heroes. Walking alone with a sword and singing loudly, thirsting for the blood of the enemy leaders. I laugh at the fame, but sigh at the snow on a beautiful woman's hair. Remembering the past, I can still feel the tenderness. Looking high today, the moon in the sky, my heart hasn't rested for thousands of years, and I remember her appearance. Searching for the traces of her, I tread through the mountains. Where this feeling is endless, there are enemies in all directions. Drawing his sword and fighting in the air, a man's heart is like iron. So what if I die? Chapter 14:11. Yu Xingqian and Lei Changtian were the first to appear, followed by Li Chenglong, Xiang Bing, and the rest. Countless soldiers surged out. In an instant, more and more people surged, as if there was no end to them. In a short period of time, they had already filled the sky. As far as the eye could see, the human clan experts of the astral souls had arrived in Shangjing and were confronting the hundreds of millions of soldiers of the three god clans. Both sides were heavily fortified and filled with murderous intent. After a while, the other two groups led by the left and right heavenly kings Sword Saint Qin and the others also arrived. The human clan camp was even more powerful. The actions of the ancient god clans were not only swift, but also targeted the vital points. The most important thing was that the Hero Soul Pass had set up a no-fly zone, which was far less effective against the flight ability of the three clans compared to the other clans. Although the three groups had already rushed to the rescue, they still fell behind the enemy. Even if they rushed and almost broke their legs, it was only now that they arrived. Everyone knew that the current Shangjing was just an empty shell. The Star Soul human clan had placed all of their living forces in the outer regions with the intention of defending against the enemy outside of the country. Now that the enemy had caught them off guard and taken drastic measures, it immediately caused everyone to be exhausted from running for their lives. On the way here, everyone was frantic. They were afraid that when they arrived, they would see a scene of desolation, a scene of misery and suffering, and the destruction of the Shangjing. Now that they had arrived, they saw that Shangjing was unharmed. Everyone was surprised and simultaneously heaved a sigh of relief. However, when they looked at the formation of the three clans' armies, everyone felt a sense of oppression in their hearts. What was going on? We clearly couldn't reach the rescue in time, but why was nothing happening in Shangjing? Could it be that the plan of the ancient god clans was just for show? The army arrived above Shangjing just to intimidate them? Otherwise, why didn't they move at all? Li Chenglong, who was most worried about the battle situation, finally felt relieved. Immediately, he felt his heart beating uncontrollably. It was an ominous feeling. He wanted to open his mouth to speak, but his mouth felt dry. Li Chenglong was no stranger to this feeling. He had felt it once before, but that time was that Yu Moyan and Li Zhongming came over, their faces pale. It's swollen. I'm panicking for no reason. It's like, Li Chenglong's face paled. You feel the same way? Yu Moyan and Li Zhongming's eyes were filled with panic and fear. Tell me what is going on? It can't be. Something extremely bad must have happened to us. Li Chenglong's lips trembled. Someone as quick-witted as him already had an answer in his heart, but he couldn't say it out loud. Or rather, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He was even more afraid of getting Li and Yu's approval. At this moment, he would rather his judgment be wrong. Wrong, it must be wrong. Yu Xingqian went forward to negotiate. Although he didn't expect the three clans to withdraw their troops, he hoped that both sides would move the battlefield to a place far away from Shangjing. The Dragon and Phoenix clans didn't mind, but the people of the Astral Souls didn't want to fight in the sky above Shangjing. Once the battle started, Shangjing would be in a terrible situation or even completely destroyed. This was something that could be expected. This was definitely not a suitable place for a battlefield. If the battle really started here, the significance of everyone rushing to help would be reduced by at least 30%. Yu Dantian, on the other hand, flew down and headed to Shangjing to find out what had happened. He didn't miss the huge dragon claw on the shield. It was a shocking sight. Who had the strength to cut down the black dragon with one sword when all the high-level fighting forces on his side were not here? After a while, Yu Dantian flew up with a gloomy face, together with the old military minister who stayed in Shangjing. Along with him, there were a few masters of the aristocratic families in Shangjing, as well as a consecrator of the royal family. The danger of Shangjing is all because of the heroes who stepped forward bravely. After understanding the whole story, the group of people who came had a heavy expression. Yu Dantian looked at Li Chenglong and the other two. The news is very bad for you. I hope you can keep calm. Li Chenglong's face was pale. Who? Who is it? When he asked this question, he was already more and more certain in his heart. A straight figure appeared in his mind. Just by standing there, he was already able to support the heavens and the earth. That time, it was a similar feeling, a similar situation, a similar. Li Chenglong tried his best to remove this figure from his mind. He was the one who was most unwilling to think in that direction. But when the thought surged, he couldn't control it anymore. When the three clans first arrived in Shangjing and were about to attack, it was Qin Fangyang who suddenly appeared in the sky above Shangjing. He single-handedly defended the pass with his sword. Yu Dantian finally said something that Li Chenglong and the other two didn't want to hear the most. The three of them stared blankly and only felt that their bodies were about to collapse. In their minds, it was as if thunderbolts were exploding one after another, that Li Chenglong desperately told himself that he was now a military advisor who controlled the whole situation. He couldn't lose his composure, and even more so, he couldn't lose his mind. Didn't Teacher Qin also encounter death back then? In the end, he returned safely and even improved greatly. Perhaps it would be the same this time, but he couldn't do it. His heart became more and more chaotic. There was only chaos, extreme chaos. Teacher Qin. Tears flowed down the faces of the three people silently. The reason why Shangjing was able to remain intact until now is all because of Teacher Qin and Wang Lingyun. Because these two people risked their lives to protect Shangjing, you guys were able to come to their rescue. Everyone recounted everything that Qin Fangyang had done in detail. LV Yingfeng's eyes were red and tears flowed down uncontrollably. Qin Fangyang was his son-in-law. His daughter was long gone. Now, his son-in-law was also gone. I only hope that husband and wife can meet in the underworld and make up for their loss. Yu Moyan gritted his teeth and said furiously, Shangjing has hundreds of millions of people, but no one came out to fight with my teacher? So many people are just going to watch my teacher die in battle without doing anything? What kind of shameful thing is this? LV Yingfeng sighed softly and said with tears flowing down his face, It's not that we don't want to come out, but we can't. If I could, I would have been the first to stand in front of Qin Fangyang. Our battle strength is shallow. It's fine if we can't compare to the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins, but who doesn't have some hot-bloodedness? But Qin Fangyang put in a lot of effort and risked his own life to use words to temporarily suppress the three races, giving Shangjing a chance to be saved. It's a small matter that we came out to die, but if we ruined all of his plans because of this, we wouldn't be able to make up for it. If the three races really broke their promise and attacked directly, wouldn't Qin Fangyang's sacrifice be in vain? All the martial artists in Shangjing are about to explode from holding back. Although the martial artists in Shangjing didn't participate in this battle, there are more than 5,000 profound return martial artists, more than 1,000 sky soar martial artists, and more than 200 Dao integration martial artists. They sacrificed themselves to fuse their souls and cultivation bases into the protective barrier of Shangjing. They followed Qin Fangyang's example and risked their lives to protect others. Everyone wants to do something, but they're not strong enough. There's a limit to what they can do. The feeling of watching the heroes bleed in the sky and not being able to do anything has already made everyone's mentality explode. If the military didn't discover it in time and give strict orders to stop it, I'm afraid that more than 100,000 martial artists would have fused their lives and souls into the protective barrier of Shangjing. 200 million citizens prayed sincerely for the heroes. Qin Fangyang's longevity tablet is displayed in the homes of countless citizens. The moment Wang Lingyun rushed up, the name of the god of war once again resounded in the sky of Shangjing. Now, Teacher Qin and the god of war are the two monuments in the hearts of the citizens of the Astral Souls continent. They're immortal monuments. The protective barrier of Shangjing covers a huge area. Even if the blood of countless heroes was spilled on it, it only made the barrier 3 times stronger than before. Although the barrier still can't withstand the attacks of high-level divine beasts like the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins, the blood of the soldiers and the souls of the brave warriors are attached to it in the most devout manner. They've really given up their lives to be with the barrier. They've all turned into the barrier. It's not that no one fought side by side with Qin Fangyang, but there were too many people who chose to use the same method as Qin Fangyang. They used their own lives to protect the citizens. The head of the military, Lu Yingfeng, the head of the Yu family, and the others explained everything in detail. This wasn't just an explanation for Li Chenglong and the others, nor was it to appease the anger in their hearts. It was because the blood of these martyrs couldn't be shed in vain. They were also heroes, heroes who deserved to be remembered for life on this continent. Their deeds shouldn't be buried. They were also martyrs of the astral souls, heroes of the continent. Qin Fangyang wasn't alone. There were also many compatriots who were of the same mind as him. They were going to hell hand in hand. Everyone's blood boiled as they listened, and their bodies trembled. Whenever there's a crisis, there are so many heroes who rise spontaneously from the astral souls continent. Yu Dongtian's eyes were filled with tears. Have you recorded the names of the heroes? Yes, we haven't missed a single one. After the war, if we're lucky enough to win, the entire continent will burn incense and pray. Red silk will fill the sky as a sacrifice to the heroic spirits. Li Chenglong flipped his hand and slapped a ball of ice and snow on his face. He took a deep breath, blinked his eyes, and swallowed back his tears. He tore a snow-white strip of cloth from his white robe and slowly tied it on his head. Gritting his teeth, he said word by word, "The 3 races of dragon, phoenix, and Qilin. From today onwards, I, Li Chenglong, announce that they're gone. In the future, not a single one of them will survive." Yu Moyan and Li Zhongming's eyes were red. They followed suit and tied white cloth on their heads. Their breathing was heavy, like a ferocious beast choosing its prey. Li Chenglong took a deep breath. He took out a map. "I'll come up with a battle plan. The original plan was to stop them, but it's no longer appropriate now. They're too fast. Lead them to Suicide Cliff." Chapter 14:12. When Zhou Xiaoduo arrived at the place where Zhou Xiaoyan was fighting, he was a full 10 minutes late. That was because he met Yin Xiao, who had come to give him treasures. 2 gourds. The Grand Master of Heaven's Water-Fire Gourd and the Primordial Beginning Saint's All-Encompassing Gourd. "Master instructed me to send these 2 gourds to you." Yin Xiao said straightforwardly, "The Water-Fire Gourd that I gave you previously was just the image of the gourd itself. This time it's the main body." After saying that, she was about to leave. Zhou Xiaoduo was overjoyed. He hurriedly took the gourd and began to curry favor. "Sister Yin Xiao, since you're here, why don't I bring you along? Let's go and watch the show. Don't you hate that patriarch Nether River?" Yin Xiao rolled her eyes. "When did I say that I hate Nether River? This kid clearly wants me to be a strong man, but he doesn't want to owe me a favor. He says that I'll bring you to watch the show. Doesn't that mean that I have to thank him when we get there? However, it's not impossible to make a trip. Coincidentally, I'm bored now anyway. I'm going to travel with Master to the Starry Sky at that time. There's nothing to be calculative about karma. However, if I can help with Xiaoduo, I can repay some karma and express the gratitude of the disciples at GS School." We can also leave some memorable memories for each other. In the future, there will be many things that can be recalled in the vast starry sky and recalled time and time again. Only memories will forever belong to you when you're alive. With that thought in mind, she said straightforwardly, "All right." Zhuo Duo was immediately energized. Yin Xiao was already a peak sage-level expert. With such a powerful help, what was there to be afraid of? No, it should be that he was not afraid in the first place. Now, only the mountain was confident. Hence, he rushed along with Yin Xiao excitedly. When they arrived at the border of the Blood River, they saw that although Zhuo Xiaoyan and the others were surrounded, they were fighting well and were not at a disadvantage. However, when Yin Xiao saw Zhuo Xiaoyan using Dharma treasures, she was dumbfounded. She had never seen such extravagant use of Dharma treasures before. That was the same as using a Dharma treasure to randomly smash it. After throwing out a magic weapon, he actually used it until he exhausted all of his spiritual energy before retrieving it. So Xiaoyan fanned the flames of 5 birds, fanned dozens of times to the left, the right, the front, and the back. It looked like it was about to be scrapped. Even if it was a spiritual treasure, it would still be damaged. Every time it was used, it would need a long time to nourish its vital energy before it could be used again. If Zhuo Xiaoyan used it like this, the flame of 5 flames and 7 birds fan would not be able to recover without hundreds of years of nourishment. Seeing that the power of the fan of flames and birds was gradually diminishing, Zhuo Xiaoyan remembered to put it away. Instead, she threw out the great seal of 9 cauldrons and raised it in the air. One after another, mountains came crashing down as if they were free, causing the Blood River to surge. The Nether River Patriarch was also an ancient authority. For a moment, he did not dare to fight Zhuo Xiaoyan head-on and was forced to hide from her. He only dared to find trouble with Gao Qiaoer and Zhun Piapiao. However, wherever he went, Zhuo Xiaoyan would chase after him. The Blood River army of hundreds of millions surrounded Zhuo Xiaoyan and the others from all sides. However, at least for now, they did not pose any threat to Zhuo Xiaoyan and the others. At least for now, Zhuo Xiaoduo could have come a few hours later, not to mention 10 minutes later that after arriving at the scene, Yin Xiao was about to make a move. She really could not bear to see Zhuo Xiaoyan's prodigal behavior. After this fierce battle, she would have to properly explain to this little girl the secrets of the treasure Luck Envoy's attack and defense. However, she saw Zhuo Xiaoduo rushing to the center of the battlefield. With a few swings of his giant hammers, he created a central area. Standing on the spot, he laughed obscenely and waved his hand. Instantly, a void portal appeared. Rows of soldiers in bright armor were actually in a battle formation, charging out with great momentum. A total of 3 million soldiers appeared on the battlefield in less than 10 seconds. What kind of speed was this? This was the real tactic of exploding in the center. In the next moment, Zhuo Xiaoduo began to wantonly throw out the heavenly secret order on his body. At the same time, he also threw out the Zhu Yan's poison that he had collected before like grenades. Then he took out the earth hair dryer that he had not used in a long time. Not only did he use it himself, he also gave one to Zhuo Xiaoyan and the others with the highest cultivation. Then he continued to operate. His life was endless, and his actions did not stop. With another wave of his hand, a total of 6 gourds appeared in his hand. The original Bai and Jiao, the 3 pure gourds, each from the Tai Ching, Yu Qing, and Shangqing sages, and the yellow skin gourd that carried the immortal slaying flying saber. These 6 innate gourds appeared for the first time in the mortal world. Guys, go out and do it. Do it with all your might. Little White and Little Jiao cheered and took the lead to rush out. They had done this kind of thing too many times. They were already familiar with it. Then with a gourd in his left hand and a gourd in his right hand, young masters Will leaped into the air and shouted, "Mingi, I'm calling you. Do you dare to answer me?" Mingi did not say anything. "I'm not a fucking idiot. You must be up to something if you call me that. I won't answer you." However, he suddenly felt that something was wrong with him. Why was his primordial spirit suddenly frozen? I didn't answer you. How did I fall into your trap? Could it be that the other party's magic treasure is so strange that it can be activated even if I don't answer? Mingy knew that things were not good. He hurriedly tried to break free. With his skills as an ancient almighty, even if a saint's magic treasure attacked, he would still be able to resist. In the sky, Swashauduo was holding a yellow-skinned gourd. There was a faint white light at the mouth of the gourd. There was a small person in the white light. The small person's eyebrows and eyes were clear. Then, a white light shot out from the small person's eyes. The white light seemed to ignore time and space. It had already pinned Mingy's primordial spirit. So the Shauduo immediately used all his strength to stabilize the gourd and shouted, "Treasure, please turn around." The white light began to spin. The immortal slaying flying saber, which had not appeared in the mortal world for a long time and was known as one of the few killing weapons of the God-Confirmant realm, had its first advantage in the clear heavenly tribulation. Well, he was not sure if it could really be used. After all, Mingy Patriarch was also an ancient expert. He had some understanding of the God-Confirmant palm. How could he not know what he had done? He naturally protected his head with all his spiritual essence. He was very clear that as long as his neck was twisted, his head would probably leave his body. Although his head would not kill him, one wrong step might lead to many mistakes. Do you know what else the other party has? It had to be said that although Mingy's response was passive, it was the best strategy at the moment. Although Zwishauduo had encountered many fortuitous encounters and his cultivation had reached the peak of the world, there was still a considerable gap between him and an ancient almighty like Mingy. Even if his plan was successful and the immortal slaying flying saber had locked onto Mingy's primordial spirit, it was unrealistic to say that he really raised the saber. Let me give you a hand. However, a slender hand at the side helped to hold the gourd. It was Yun Xiao who intervened. She looked at the yellow-skinned gourd and the immortal slaying flying saber with a complicated gaze. Her tyrannical magic power surged wildly, greatly increasing the power of the immortal slaying flying saber. Zwishauduo also mobilized all his spiritual essence on the gourd. At the same time, he roared, "Treasure, turn around right now." The white light spun rapidly, again and again. Mingy Patriarch also roared loudly. He did not move no matter what. It was obvious that he was using all his strength to hold his neck. Sword light flashed again. Zhua Xiaoyan took advantage of this opportunity to use the soul-snatching sword to pierce through Mingy Patriarch's body. His dodging ability had decreased by 90%. Bloody holes appeared one after another, and blood flowed out like a fountain. Mingy Patriarch screamed loudly. Suddenly, he made up his mind and used the method of burning his life essence. His primordial spirit burst out beyond his limits and broke free from the restraint of the immortal slaying flying saber. With a boom, he sent Xiaoyan flying. He suddenly broke free from the shackles on his neck. With a crack, he used too much strength and his neck was dislocated. Mingy, who had a crooked neck, was like a crooked tree. He broke out of the encirclement without caring about his image. He could not afford to offend him. It was too scary. He knew that nothing good would come out of encountering Zhu Yan. Now, it was indeed so that if he did not run, the Azura clan would be exterminated. Chapter 14:13. However, just as the Nether River Patriarch rushed out a few hundred meters, he suddenly stiffened and was stopped in his tracks. It was still that white light. Zhuoxiao's arrogant laughter could be heard from afar. "Please turn around, baby." The Nether River Patriarch felt like he had eaten shit. "Turn your ass." Gourd. A red gourd suddenly appeared and enlarged. It was the soul-dispersing gourd. It was also one of the Nether River Patriarch's trump cards. Zhuoxiao's eyes lit up. "I've been waiting for you for so long," he almost sang. If not for the gourd, Zhuoxiaoduo would not have done that. He was afraid that the gourd would be gone if the Nether River Patriarch exploded. Zhua Xiaoyan, who was close at hand, would have had the chance to kill the Nether River Patriarch. "Give it to me." The 6 gourds rushed forward and surrounded the soul-dispersing gourd. At the same time, they shouted, "Don't move. Raise your hands." A fair and tender little boy appeared on the soul-dispersing gourd and raised his tender hand subconsciously. He looked confused and stuttered. Why? Why am I surrounded? Say it, you surrender. The 6 gourds shouted together. Okay, I surrender. The soul-dispersing gourd immediately pretended to be scared, its eyes flashing with amusement. We accept your surrender. Yeah, the soul-dispersing gourd surrendered in a second. Such a trick left the Nether River Patriarch completely dumbfounded and in utter despair. The 7 gourds' divine wills gathered and instantly cut off the Nether River Patriarch's divine soul connection. And to prevent the soul-dispersing gourd from getting hurt, they even counterattacked. The divine soul connection was cut off unilaterally. Moreover, the 7 divine wills on the other side were protecting it tightly. They chased, destroyed, and harassed. The Nether River Patriarch raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. His mind was in a mess. This was bullying. The Nether River Patriarch had never dreamed that such a thing could happen. Just as he was in a daze, he suddenly felt a chill in his chest and neck. Zhuo Xiaoyan's sword stabbed into his chest, and Gao Qiao, Er's sword chopped off the Nether River Patriarch's head. With a boom, the Blood River sword. The Nether River Patriarch's body turned into a pool of blood and merged into the river. The next moment, he appeared a few hundred meters away, but he was much weaker. But his face, Zhuo Xiaoduo and the others instantly. The Nether River Patriarch's expression hardened. Suddenly, he let out a long howl and brandished his Yuan Tu and Avici swords. At the same time, the millions of Azuras and blood gods around him suddenly fell to the ground and were reduced to pools of blood. All of a sudden, the countless warriors who were fighting with the Azura tribe felt their vision go blank. All of their attacks hit nothing but air. The Nether River Patriarch's cultivation was almost instantly restored to peak condition. He Nether River Blood Patriarch Nether River Patriarch Nether Patriarchswa Xiao Duo didn't immediately rush up to fight. He turned to ask Yun Xiao, Sister Yun Xiao, what should we do in this situation? As long as the Blood River is not destroyed, the sticks will not die. This is the law. Cloud Sky said coolly. Want to truly kill Mingi, one must completely exterminate the Azura clan. There's such a thing. Absolutely. Cloud Sky said, furthermore, this place isn't all of Azura. If we kill Nether River here, Patriarch Nether River will be resurrected in the underground Blood River. Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes flashed. Then I'd like to see how many times he can resurrect. Sister Yun Xiao, please help us settle this as soon as possible. All right. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Yun Xiao, one on the left and one on the right, charged into the battle. Yun Xiao's main goal was to help the normal soldiers fight and save them from danger. On the other hand, Zhuo Xiaoduo flew directly above the Nether River Patriarch, and the 99 kitty hammers turned into 2 mountains as they came crashing down. Clang! Clang! The Yuan Tu infinite pain, swords were sent flying with a mournful cry. Then, black and white rays of light fell in the sky above the Nether River like a storm. Together with Zhuo Xiaoyan, they besieged Mingi from the left and right. Yin and Yang attacked at the same time. Ice and fire switched in an instant. A look of despair appeared in the Nether River Patriarch's eyes. In just a few minutes, Zhuo Xiaoduo's hammers turned him into dust. When he reappeared in the Blood River, he was more than half of his original strength. Once again, he extracted the life force of countless blood gods and Azuras and retreated frantically. But how could his speed compare to Zhuo Xiaoduo's? Zhuo Xiaoduo's true combat strength was the same as Zhuo Xiaoyan's, peak sage to be, and so was the Nether River Patriarch. But now, Zhuo Xiaoduo alone could beat Nether River Patriarch. With Zhuo Xiaoyan's help, the Nether River Patriarch could not fight back at all. He was beaten up the whole time. Again and again, he was beaten to a pulp. After he put away the Yuan Tu infinite pain swords, he did not dare to take them out again, because he found that both swords were full of scars and were at a disadvantage in the clash with the 99 kitty hammers. If he used them in battle again, they would probably be shattered by Zhuo Xiaoduo. The Nether River Patriarch had never imagined that the power of a pair of heavy weapons could be so great. Since ancient times, none of the weapons used by experts were so heavy. Or perhaps, they were not that heavy in the beginning. As for the cyclic sky seal and the others, they were all magical treasures that could only be used when one reached a certain level. It was a completely different concept from the weapons that grew together with one's hand from the beginning. Most of the ancient experts used sabers, swords, spears, horsetail whisks, and so on. Firstly, they were light and agile, and secondly, elegant and unrestrained. He had never seen anyone who used hammers. But today, he saw someone who used heavy weapons and directly cultivated to the level of a demi-saint. Only then did he realize how terrifying it was. The Nether River Patriarch wanted to cry, but had no tears. He did not have a chance to escape. After he was beaten up again, just as he reformed his body. Of course, Zhuoduo and Zhuoxianyan gave Nether River time to recover. 5 seconds, because they realized that if Nether River needed to recover, he would need to take the lives of at least hundreds of thousands of Azure soldiers and blood gods. He would use them to feed himself. In other words, beating up Nether River once was equivalent to killing hundreds of thousands of Azure soldiers. This was a bargain that could not be more worthwhile. Therefore, the two of them kept an eye on the Nether River Patriarch. They did not relax for even a moment. They would let him reform his body, then extract his life force to recover, and then beat him up again, and so on. This way, the human experts of the astral souls on the battlefield had a much easier time. Some people saw that they were about to die, but suddenly, a whole group of enemies around them died. This feeling was really indescribable. I knew that I was about to die, but all of you turned into a pool of blood at the most critical second. This is really embarrassing. The commander of the Southern Army, this time, was the deputy commander. He was so experienced in battle that he immediately ordered loudly, "Do not seek to kill the enemy. Seek to protect yourself first. Protect yourself. That is victory." He could see that as long as this side held on, the enemies would automatically decrease in numbers. He had fought wars his whole life, but he had never thought that he could take advantage of such a situation. This battle was really comfortable. This way, the battle became even easier. Yun Shao activated the Golden Dragon Scissors and attacked the Nether River Patriarch. Instantly, the Nether River collapsed even faster. 10 minutes later, they watched as the Blood River slowly sank into the ground and turned into a pool of stagnant water. The Nether River Patriarch's consciousness seemed to be wriggling in the center, but the energy here could no longer support his revival. In particular, Zhuoduo and Shao were desperately setting fire, evaporating the Blood River. And Zhuoxianyan and Shao were desperately freezing and releasing ice flames. The Blood River was decreasing at a visible rate that in the end, only a patch of blood-red dried-up marks were left on the ground. The Azura army was completely annihilated. Zhuoduo searched for a long time, but could not find the two swords Yuan, Tu, and Avicii. The Nether River is not dead. He must have taken them back. If we want to completely destroy the Azura, we have to go to the underground Blood River. Yin Shao reminded him. Zhuoduo was a little disappointed, but he immediately reacted. There are still 8 other enemies. We have to rush over to reinforce them. The pressure should be very heavy. But the most dangerous one should be Dad and Mom. Dad and Mom are fighting the demons. Zhuoxianyan was worried. Zhuoduo immediately ordered the army to gather. Sister Yin Shao, you and Yin go to my parents' side. I will gather everyone and go to Shangjing. We will split up. Okay. Yin Shao agreed readily. Along the way, he could teach Zhuoxianyan how to use Dharma treasures. Of course, Gao Xiao and Zhun Piapiao still followed Zhuoxianyan. Shao also followed. To be safe, Zhuoduo also handed the immortal slaying gourd to Zhuoxianyan. Let Sister Yin Shao teach you how to use it. Then, he hurried Zhuoxianyan. Let's go. We have to help Dad and Mom. As for Yin Shirsi, Zhuoduo couldn't let him deal with the demons. Not to mention other things, the main body of the god-slaying spear was there. If Yin Shirsi betrayed them, so He had to bring him to Shangjing. A few minutes after Zhuxianyan and the others left, all the troops had entered the Tower of Annihilation. On the other hand, Zhuxiaoduo flew up and tore through space. He had been feeling uneasy. This was the feeling that something big was going to happen. He had been feeling uneasy, but when he thought about the fortune of everyone before he set off, most of them were fine. He was a little relieved, but also a little worried. The divination first showed that Yin Zhonghu's calamity was this time. He wondered, how is it now? Chapter 14:14. Shangjing. Li Chenglong had meticulously planned. Yu Xingchen had a discussion with the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix to plan a decisive battle and propose a decisive battle at the suicide cliff. Don't destroy Shangjing City. However, the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix refused. Why should we listen to your suggestion? Whether Shangjing City is destroyed or not, you don't have the final say. Our three clans have the final say. Looking at the mocking eyes of the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix, Yu Xingchen was flustered and exasperated and was about to explode. At this moment, Li Chenglong appeared and said a few words with a smile. If you win, the entire continent will be yours. Why destroy the integrity of Shangjing? If you fail, with the pride of the three ancient god clans, do you need ordinary people to be buried with you? Why? The three ancient clans that have been invincible since ancient times have no confidence. You don't have the confidence to win, Li Chenglong said in an even more mocking tone. So, you don't even dare to agree to a normal request for a decisive battle? He laughed out loud. If the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins have to rely on the 200 million people of Shangjing to threaten us before they have the courage to fight this battle, then why should the people of Shangjing fear death? So what if we do as you wish? Just like just now, Yu Xingchen couldn't stand the ridicule of the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins. Now, facing Li Chenglong's ridicule, the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins suddenly exploded. Bullshit! The ancestral dragon, primordial phoenix, and Qilin cursed at the same time. Li Chenglong said loudly, "That's right. You're very accurate. Our goal is to protect Shangjing City. Now, let's see if you dare to go there and fight. If you don't dare, we can accept it here. We astral souls are not afraid of sacrifice." Li Chenglong's voice rumbled. Below, a tsunami-like voice came from Shangjing City. "We can fight here. We're not afraid of death. We're not afraid of death. We also want to see the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins fall from the sky. Avenge the heroes. We're not afraid." Waves of sound waves rushed into the sky. The people of Shangjing almost shouted their hearts out. Above them, the countless astral soul soldiers felt their hearts beating violently. Their blood was rushing through their veins, and their bodies felt like they were about to explode. Do you dare? The ancestor dragon, ancestor phoenix, and ancestor Qilin snorted arrogantly. We know that your goal is to protect this city, but we, the three races, have nothing to fear. Our original goal was to eliminate the main force of astral souls. Our target was Shangjing, but it was only a means. Now that the main force is already in front of us, why should we care about the lives of a bunch of ants? So be it. As you wish, what do we, the three ancient god clans, have to fear? These words were arrogant and full of confidence. Immediately, the three clans cheered in excitement. If that's the case, please, Li Chenglong ordered, and the 6 human armies of the astral souls retreated. Shangjing City was left completely defenseless in front of the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin clans. It's clear that we trust you. I wonder if the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin clans are worthy of our trust? Let's go. With the pride of the 3 ancient clans, they naturally didn't even look at Shangjing City. They waved their hands and ordered the army to move. The dragon clan moved first. Under the lead of tens of thousands of pure-blood dragons, a group of vipers surged over like a tide. There were dragon turtles, dragon fish, flood dragons, dragon lions, dragon elephants, and even dragon humans that dragons were lustful by nature. Ahem, everyone knew this, so there was no need to explain. In short, they were all vipers and vassal clans of the Dragon Clan. The Phoenix Clan had more of them. Qingwan, Honghu, Shangyang. That then came the vassal clans of the Phoenix Clan. They flapped their wings and flew over in a mighty manner. Then came the Qilin Clan. The Qilin Clan had the least number of pure-blood Qilins. They led a large group of vassal demon beast clans and also surged through the sky like a torrent. These divine beasts, if it were 5 years ago, I'm afraid that the appearance of any one of them could cause a catastrophe for the entire continent. Yudong Tian was still a little emotional. Now, they're in such a large group, but it still makes us feel that they're just SOSO. The changes are really too great. Yin Zhonghu said honestly, "Of course, my little junior brother has brought great changes to the continent's strength. It's really too great." Yu Dongtian nodded. There was really no way to refute this. Although the Xiao duo's character had always been lazy, mischievous, eccentric, and despicable, but if one thought about it carefully, all these changes were brought to the entire Star Soul human tribe after this brat slowly became stronger. Those countless elixirs, countless resources, countless divine weapons, and that mysterious void extermination tower, especially those elixirs that could raise the cultivation of Zenith Heavenly Realm. Thinking about it carefully, this little guy who often made people want to kick him actually did so many things. The situation of the entire continent changed because of him. The battle strength of the entire human clan of the Astral Souls increased by more than 10 times because of him. This battle is going to be very dangerous. Yudong Tian said seriously, "Yin Zhonghu, let's fight side by side. We can't be separated to avoid being defeated one by one." He felt a strong sense of crisis in his heart. Yudong Tian had once asked with Xiaoduo about Yin Zhonghu's divination. Yudong Tian instinctively felt that. Perhaps this was Yin Zhonghu's final battle, the tribulation of his life. Therefore, he didn't allow Yin Zhonghu to leave his sight. As he spoke, he flew in the air, looking straight ahead. He didn't look at Yin Zhonghu. Yin Zhonghu was stunned for a moment. He said, "After so many years, this is the first time you call me by my full name. Yudong Tian, are you afraid? Are you afraid that I'll die?" Yudong Tian laughed and said, "I'm afraid that you won't die fast enough. I'll make it up to you when the time comes. Go to hell." Yin Zhonghu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Bai Yunduo followed closely behind her husband, feeling her heart beating like a drum. Looking at her husband's broad shoulders, which seemed to be solid and reliable, she couldn't help but feel a little at ease. She thought to herself, "We can only win this battle. If we win, we'll take a big step towards our final goal. But if we lose, forget it, I don't want to think so much. Anyway, I'll accompany Brother Hu. We live and die together. For the sake of my belief, what's wrong with dying in battle?" They were already thousands of miles away from Shangjing City. The troops at the front had already begun to line up under Li Chenglong's arrangements. Hundreds of millions of soldiers and horses gathered together. Other than the sound of the wind blowing the flags and the rustling of clothes, no one said a word. One by one, they stood solemnly, pricked up their ears, listened to orders, followed the commander of the headquarters, entered their own formation, and lined up in the designated area in front. The Dragon Clan had also begun to organize their formation. A great battle was about to break out. Even the air seemed to have become heroic. Chapter 14-15. Li Chenglong did not hesitate and immediately made a decision. The original 6 groups will remain unchanged. The 6 groups moved separately and did their own things. In this march, there was already a clear direction, and each group had to face strong opponents that could not be ignored. So far, there was a certain degree of cooperation. Li Chenglong did not intend to mess up and redistribute the groups. At this time, regrouping would only reduce the strength of the troops. Hearing Li Chenglong's words, the few commanders nodded. Form a triangular battle formation. Double star formation. Pai Bao. Present. For this battle, you will be free to move around outside the battle circle. Your only mission is to kill no less than 100 high-level dragon, phoenix, and Qilin cultivators. At the same time, try your best to avoid exposing yourself. Yes, commanders, you will still be in charge of your own commands. At the same time, pay attention to your own safety and avoid the enemy's strategy of killing the commanders. Yes, the left and right heavenly kings will be out of command and form the dagger team. Together with Lore by Yunduo, they will focus on killing the enemy's experts. The commanders and deputy commanders were all military experts who were familiar with military formations. In terms of commanding the troops, they were indeed more proficient than the left and right heavenly kings. Although the left and right heavenly kings were like commanders-in-chief, in this kind of battle, the clash of high-level combatants was the first guarantee of the victory of the army. Li Chenglong's arrangement was truly making the best use of everything and everyone's talents. Yes, Qin Sha swordsman, you will also prioritize killing the enemy's experts. Yes, Emperor, Lord Chantian, you two will go together. Yes, Yu Moyan Diganer, Li Zhongming, Yu Yaner, the four of you will be in a group. Li Chungming's Great Dream Divine Technique will be the point of attack. Yu Yin will be in charge of protecting Li Chungming. When the enemy slackens, Yu Moyan will attack and Duganer will assist. Yes, Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Zhan Xuejuan, the three of you will be in a group. Focus on unleashing Zhan Xuejuan's explosive power. Yes, Uncle Wu Taijiang, you will be in charge of the army and deploy the military equipment. All right, I will be in charge of commanding the middle troops and coordinating with the four directions. Everyone, please act according to your orders and change the formation. Do not slack off. Yes, the sharp saber force, when you need to form up and kill the enemy, you must return immediately and serve as the front line of your army. You must be both the sharpest spear and the sharpest shield. Get into formation. In less than 3 minutes, the two triangular formations had already formed and were ready to go. For the sake of safety, Li Chenglong did not choose to go all in. He even kept a portion of his reserve troops to deal with any unexpected changes. The marshals were full of praise for Li Chenglong's tactical adjustments. Even if it was him, he wouldn't be able to do any better. In particular, the arrangement of the top combatants was even more ingenious. Even Dongfang Zhengyang nodded in agreement. If it were them, it would be easy for them to command an army. However, they would not be able to command the Emperor, Sword Emperor, and Qin Sha. Some even didn't dare to open their mouths. After all, the respect they had for tens of thousands of years was ingrained in their bones. However, Li Chenglong did not feel that way at all. He had the clearest understanding of a military advisor. Even if you are a saint in my army, you are just a pawn under me. You must obey my orders. That was a military formation. Li Chenglong spoke faster and faster. In this battle, our real disadvantage is our overall strength. Our overall strength is much weaker than the enemy's. However, we also have an advantage, and that is the military formation and the art of war. The battle formation that integrates the combat strength of the soldiers is our advantage. The command mode that follows orders is our biggest help. The enemy's individual strength is undeniable. However, when it comes to fighting as a team, it can be said that they are like scattered sand. Obviously, they have not gone through any unified battle formation training. Therefore, we must maintain this advantage and make full use of it. Li Chenglong said word by word. When an ordinary army encountered a super-class expert, what was the only way to protect themselves? It was the battle formation. It was to use the advantage of numbers to share and unload the part of the force that was beyond their capacity, using this to resist and even destroy the enemy. There is no need to say anything more. However, I still request that before the casualties exceed half of our numbers, the military formation cannot be disrupted. The formation cannot be scattered. This is the only thing that you ordinary soldiers can rely on to kill the enemy and save your lives. If the formation of 10,000 men is broken, you can still form another formation of 5,000 men. If 5,000 men are broken, you can still form another formation of 3,000 men. Even if the formation falls below 100 men, you can still form 72 men, 81 men, 36 men. All kinds of formations. For the astral soul's continent, for your brothers, for your wives, children, and families, everyone, even if you're in a desperate situation, do not give up. Self-destruction is the only way to survive under 10,000 deaths. Do not be too impulsive. Li Chenglong said loudly. In the past 3 years, the astral soul's continent's human soldiers had trained the most in killing formations. This was also the only method that Li Chenglong had painstakingly found that could allow a low-level army to fight against a high-level expert. After 3 years of training, it was impossible for the Flood Witch to destroy an army of 8,000 men with a single hammer to happen again. As long as they didn't panic and the battle formation didn't disperse, with a combined strength of 8,000 people. Even if they were facing a super powerful battle force like the Flood Witch, they still had room to fight back. In the worst case, under the protection of the formation, they wouldn't collapse in an instant. As long as they could hold on for a while, there would be room for maneuvering. At this moment, the bugle call for the charge was blown. Li Chenglong waved his hand and said, "Let's fight." Without giving the dragon, phoenix, and Shilin races a chance to reorganize their formations, the Astral Soul's Continent's army charged forward in 2 huge triangular formations. The left and right Heavenly Kings, Celestial Emperor Zhai Xing, Lei Chantian, Sword Sovereign Qin Sha, and other top experts of the Astral Souls were at the tip of the triangle. With such an extreme attack, it was obvious that they wanted to use their strongest strength to forcefully tear apart the outer wings of the dragon and phoenix races. It was like a hot knife cutting into frozen butter. A fierce battle immediately began. This attack could be said to be the only advantage that the Astral Soul's Continent's army could take advantage of in Li Chenglong's calculations. It was also the biggest advantage. Under the premise that they had to fight before they could fully determine the opponent's strength, taking the initiative to attack while the opponent was still in a stable position could be said to be the most advantageous tactic. The next best situation was naturally to separate the 2 wings of the opponent's army and use the power of the military formation to gradually encroach on them. Of course, this was the most ideal situation. It could also be said to be wishful thinking. Li Chenglong was very clear that this move might be able to disrupt the opponent's current formation and could also cause a certain amount of damage. However, it was too wishful thinking to achieve the ultimate goal of encroaching on the opponent's army. What he hoped for was to be able to see how much of the opponent's strength he could reduce after this temporary advantage at the beginning of the battle. He could then use this to calculate the opponent's strength level. Of course, if the number of people he could reduce in this wave of attack was satisfactory, it might be slightly easier in the future. However, if the number of people he reduced was too little, then the following battle was destined to be cruel. The Astral Soul's Continent's army, even with the support of the military formation, would find it difficult to hold on, let alone gain the upper hand. Strength was the absolute truth, and the absolute truth was obviously not on the side of the Astral Soul's Continent's humans. Therefore, Li Chenglong's biggest hope was actually not on the battlefield in front of him, but on the reinforcements. Li Chenglong did not have much hope for Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding's team. Against the army of the demon race led by the demon ancestor Luo Ho, if Uncle's team could maintain the situation and stall the enemy, it would be a great victory that was beyond his imagination. After all, the demon ancestor's thunderous attack had brought too much shock to the powerhouses on the continent of the Astral Souls. It was almost like a nightmare. Zhuo Chonglu and his wife's cultivation had improved greatly. Otherwise, they would not have the confidence to fight against the demon ancestor at all. The real backup that Li Chenglong was looking forward to was on Zhuo Xiao's side. They had been partners for a long time. Before they set off, they had already discussed that they must finish off the Azura army as soon as possible and then return as fast as possible to reinforce Shangjing. The faster, the better, whether or not they could hold on in this battle, and whether or not there would be any humans on the continent of the Astral Souls after the war, all depended on Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan's speed in finishing off the enemy. However, even so, Li Qinglong was not very confident. Although the Nether River Patriarch was the weakest of the three battlefields in his calculation, it was not easy for Zhuo and Zhuo to finish off the Nether River Patriarch and the hundreds of millions of soldiers behind him as soon as possible. Such a large-scale war of extermination could not be finished in a short time, even if it did not last for a long time. Li Qinglong was confident that the battle on his side could last for a day and a night without collapsing. As for more than that, he could only rely on luck. One day and a night was not easy to win. Such a strategic goal, and that was Li Qinglong's promise with Zhuo, gave him more confidence. If it had been anyone else, they might not have been able to hold on. After all, the overall strength difference between the two sides was too great. Kill! Kill! Both sides let out an earth-shaking roar. The troops on both sides began to charge. The astral souls were one step ahead, but the dragon race was not to be outdone. With a loud bang, they collided with one another. At that moment, the sky temporarily darkened. Then, countless human heads, dragon heads, deer heads, and lion heads could be seen flying into the air. Countless severed limbs floated in the air like raindrops. Fresh blood seemed to have opened a hole in the sky and connected to the Nether River Patriarch's blood river as it flowed down. As the battle between the two sides began, waves of blood instantly filled the sky. Roars and screams joined together. From the beginning of the battle, one's ears had basically lost their function. Tens of millions of people shouted in unison, and the sound of battle rumbled around them. It was truly a deafening feeling. Many people with lower cultivation were even knocked unconscious by the huge sound waves. Their brains and souls were shattered, and they were turned into lifeless zombies. Then, under the vibration of the sound waves and the trampling of enemies or allies, they were naturally reduced to dust and scattered in the air. At such a time, the dust and ashes did not even have the chance to fall from the sky and return to dust. They were driven by the tyrannical waves of the battle and floated in the air endlessly. Streaks of darkness flashed, as if there were countless ravines in the air, and they disappeared in a flash. That was when an expert discovered that he was no match for the enemy and chose to self-destruct the moment he came into contact with them. At such a time, no one cared whether their self-destruction would hurt their allies. Everything was to hurt the enemy first. As for whether they would hurt their comrades or not, they really did not care. At most, they would roar before they self-destructed. "I'm going." They would take the opportunity to remind their comrades, and then try their best to charge into the enemy's camp. The dead would be reduced to dust, and there would be no other thoughts. The living still did not have any time to feel sad or sigh, and they did not even have the time to reminisce. Their only response was to charge forward with red eyes and weapons, stepping on the corpses of their comrades, stepping on the flesh of their enemies, waving their swords and fighting. Everyone did not care about their own safety, and everyone did not care about anything. Self-destruction had become a common occurrence, and it was inevitable. My comrades have already returned, and I will do my best to fight. If I can avenge you, I will avenge you. If I unfortunately die in battle, I will not let this life down, just like you. I will not let down my youth. One word, long snake. Yu Xingqian roared like a thunderclap, and the army behind him instantly gathered and returned to their positions. With Yu Xingqian and Lei Changtian as the dragon heads of the front, the army of more than 50 million maintained their own formations, and all of them converged into the one-word long snake formation. For a moment, it was as if a huge black dragon had overturned the seas and rivers. It forcefully blocked the north and south of the dragon army, and then rolled over and killed the enemy, looking disdainfully at the wilderness. There were constantly soldiers on the periphery, screaming and falling into the dust, and they were smashed into pieces before they could be rescued. However, there were also dragon warriors screaming and falling from the sky continuously. Continuous screams could be heard incessantly. A huge green dragon revealed its true form and howled miserably towards the sky. Its two huge dragon eyes had already turned into two bloody holes. The long sword in Yu Xingqian's hand flashed, and Lei Changtian's Demon King hook danced in the air. Boom, boom, boom. The huge green dragon's body turned into more than 10 round pieces, and dragon blood poured down like a waterfall. 2 of the dragon's body parts were swept past by the 2 of them and kept into their space rings. The other parts that fell off were knocked around by the strong wind and kept breaking into pieces. When it fell through the clouds, passed through the armies that were fighting, and landed on the ground, there were only a few pieces of shiny dragon skin with bits and pieces of flesh left, and it was barely considered complete. 2 more azure dragons roared as they pierced through the air. Their targets were Yu Xingqian and Lei Zhangtian. Dongfang Jinyang. Yu Xingqian roared, "You command." Before he finished his sentence, he and Lei Changtian had already turned into 2 wisps of green smoke and faced the 2 attacking green dragons head-on. In the sky, Pai Yibao stood majestically without any sense of presence, and the huge bow in his hand was slowly drawn. Below, there was an uproar, but Pai Yibao's expression was cold, as if he was detached from the world and did not fit in with the current battle. However, a huge arrow that looked like a long spear was knocked on the bowstring. In an instant, the bow was drawn to a full moon, and the arrow was like a shooting star. Whoosh! An arrow tore through the air. Below, a black dragon suddenly let out an earth-shattering roar, and a huge arrow appeared on its forehead, and a huge bloody hole was created. That huge arrow, which was at least 2 meters long, was completely inserted into its skull. Even the tail of the arrow was not revealed. The black dragon's body rolled and fell. Although it was still struggling, it was already at the door of death, and there was no chance of survival. A moment later, another arrow shot out. An unusually ferocious one-legged phoenix, Shangyang, was hit by the sword out of nowhere. The arrow shot through the skull. Apart from destroying the head, the remaining force of the arrow didn't diminish. It pierced through the neck and the lower abdomen, shattering the dantian and soul into pieces. A ball of nirvana flame suddenly rose, and Shangyang knew that he would not be able to survive. He had no choice but to use his last life-saving trump card. Hoping that he would be lucky to, however, a sword came quickly and directly split the surging nirvana flame in half. A spirit flashed out from the nirvana flame, and then it was immediately smashed into pieces by the combined forces of hundreds of people beside it. Since the process of nirvana was interrupted, Shangyang naturally had no chance of surviving. He was completely destroyed, and his spirit was completely destroyed. Li Chenglong was standing in the sky above the central army, and he looked at the battlefield in front of him. All he could see was a sea of blood, and the smell of blood filled the air. Countless familiar faces were turned into minced meat after a loud roar, and they were never seen again. These people had all drunk wine together and talked about the world together. The messenger soldiers beside Li Chenglong were all trembling, and their eyes were bloodshot. However, Li Chenglong's expression did not change. Instead, his eyes became calmer and calmer. At this juncture, everyone could panic, but only he could not. He had to maintain an icy heart and a cold heart. The battle in front of him was becoming more and more intense, and the battle formation that he had put in all his effort to control was already fully formed. The time has come. Raise the flag, change the formation, combine the 2 formations, and form the 2 dragons emerging from the water formation. Then immediately change into the pentagonal formation, and the 5 directions will revolve to form a rolling dragon that will scatter and kill the enemy. Roger, a huge flag that was several hundred feet wide and 1,000 feet tall, was waved by the combined forces of 3 Heaven Ascension Stage cultivators, and the flag signals were impeccable. Countless people within the formation yelled in agreement. The flag signals have changed. The flag signals have changed. Dongfang Jingyang and the other commanders responded to the command from the Central Army, and they carried out the command at all costs. Then, they sacrificed several Dao integration stage cultivators to forcefully change the battle formation and form the 2 dragons emerging from the water formation. It was no easy task to change the battle formation of tens of millions of soldiers. Even though Dongfang Jingyang and the other commanders responded in time, and without any hesitation, tens of thousands of soldiers were still killed by the time the second battle formation was formed. However, as the two battle formations converged, they transformed into the pentagonal formation, and the soldiers of the five directions began to move in unison. Under the coordination of the Central Army, the troops from the east, west, north, and south formed a flowing and charging pattern. Moreover, they gradually expanded, each wave higher than the previous one. Currently, they were all moving toward the left. Looking from above, all of the soldiers of the astral souls looked like a gigantic wheel. The four directions were led by Yun Zhonghu, Yu Dongtian, Bai Yunduo, Yu Xingqian, Lei Changtian, Qin Sha, Sword King, Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, and the others. With the weapons in their hands as the points, a vast and irresistible power transformed into a sharp blade that was thousands of feet long, and it whizzed past them. Such a method of condensing energy into weapons naturally possessed astonishing lethality, but it also consumed a lot of energy. Even a quasi-sage wouldn't be able to maintain it for long. However, Yin Zhonghu and the others were able to do so, and this was because the gigantic battle formation behind them was providing them with an endless supply of energy. This energy was all received by Yun Zhonghu and the others, and then they attacked wildly. Yun Zhonghu and the others were only the controllers of this mighty force. Although it still consumed a considerable amount of energy, as 4 ounces of force was still needed to move 1,000 ounces of force, compared to the energy consumption of condensing energy into weapons, it was insignificant. And this was the battle formation transformation method that Li Chenglong had set up. Even with Yu Xingqian's level of cultivation, it would be difficult for his body to bear such a huge amount of energy. However, it was a different matter to act as a relay station for the moment of receiving and immediately attacking. And this kind of power was tyrannical to a considerable extent. Even the powerful experts of the three races, the dragon, the phoenix, and the Qilin, would find it difficult to resist. Such a powerful battle formation naturally wouldn't be without its drawbacks. In addition to such a rotation, another battle formation transformation was needed, and it would turn into a rest and recuperation, accumulating energy, and after the 3 battle formations rotation and recuperation, it would turn into another killing formation that continued to form a cycle, forming an uninterrupted and progressive killing atmosphere. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to continuously kill people in one wave. Not only would it be interrupted by the enemy, but it would also be difficult to continue in one go, and then weaken, and then exhaust, leading to a total collapse. Boom Boom, seeing that the sharp attacks were incomparably fierce, the Ancestor Dragon and the Primordial Phoenix both tried to stop them, but they were also blasted back more than 10,000 feet, spitting out blood. This is a battle formation. The Ancestor Dragon roared, break their flow, and attack the middle of the battle formation. The Ancestral Dragon and Primordial Phoenix were veteran experts who had lived through countless epics. Naturally, they were veterans of hundreds of battles. Their combat experience was extremely rich. After suffering a loss once, they immediately reacted. How could they continue to attack? At this moment, the 5-element formation had already rotated 2.5 rounds, and more than 100,000 soldiers of the 3 races were all crushed into powder. Thousands of bloodline experts of the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin races couldn't escape in time and died. Such a battle result was glorious. However, the battle formation had already been activated to this point, and it was already showing signs of weakness. Especially after the brazen collision of the 2 peak experts, the Ancestor Dragon and the Primordial Phoenix, the battle formation seemed to be incomparably powerful, and the 2 peak experts were pushed back consecutively. But in fact, the battle formation had already been delayed twice in succession. Although the battle formation wasn't messed up, it was no longer as smooth and flawless as before. Under the orders of the 2 clan leaders, countless experts began to chase after the 5-element formation and attack the middle of the battle formation. Amidst continuous screams, Countless soldiers fell like dumplings. Flag signal. Tripartite defense formation. Li Chenglong shouted. The flag waved, and the order was sent out. Dongfang Xingyang and the others roared together, and they began to change the battle formation. They turned from attack to defense and fought against the enemies with all their might. However, when the battle formation was formed, millions of soldiers had already died under the large-scale counterattack of the three races. Of course, the casualties of the three races would only increase. Even though the battle formation of the five-element formation was gradually losing its balance, its power was still shocking. The three races' armies launched a large-scale attack, and countless weaker warriors died under this round of confrontation. Because both sides were filled with hatred, they licked their wounds and were ready to attack again. Li Chenglong was still calmly watching the battle from the sky. He watched as the tripartite defense formation slowly accumulated power in the battle formation and turned into an aura that twisted into a rope in the battle. Flag signal. Change the battle formation. Li Chenglong ordered. Quick 7-star battle formation. Attack. The battle formation of the army changed again. Other than that, the only movement was that cold arrows were shot down from the sky one after another. But in such a vast battle, no one would notice anything at all that Pai Yibao's fingers were already dripping with blood. So far, he had consecutively shot down more than 50 experts of the three races. Although most of them were heavily injured by one arrow, and then they were besieged and killed by the soldiers on the battlefield, the outcome of the battle would definitely be different if it were not for his unexpected arrow. But now, he had reached the point where he was like a lamp that had run out of oil. Every arrow he shot was made with the strength of his whole body. It consumed his true chi, vitality, and mental strength. If it were not for him holding on with one breath, it would have been difficult for him to continue. Pai Bao felt that it was difficult for him to continue, so he did not hesitate. He took out the heaven-mending stone that Zhuo Xiaoduo had given him and immediately stuck it on his right wrist. The wound was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and even the exhausted true chi was gradually recovering. His eyes did not pay attention to his wound, but like a hawk, he looked for the enemy he needed to kill. Shoot the strongest enemy to the greatest extent, and save the weakest on my side to the greatest extent. Ensure that the battle formation can operate smoothly to the greatest extent. This was his mission. Feeling that his injury had almost recovered, and his dantian was filled with true chi again, Pai Yibao silently raised the bow again. The bow was like a thunderbolt. The arrow was like a meteor, invisible and traceless. Traceless and invisible. Li Chenglong looked at the time anxiously. Once again, he lamented that time was passing too slowly. It had only been an hour and a half since the start of the battle, but the number of casualties on both sides had reached tens of millions. This was a battle in the air, and there were no restrictions on the ground. The forces of both sides were able to expand to the limit in a three-dimensional way. It has only been an hour and a half. Zwa, when will you come back to help? Please, make it incredible again. Make it a miracle again, and continue to write your legend. Don't let the legend end. Li Chenglong was very worried. He had begun to wonder if he could hold on for at least a day and a night. Was he too optimistic? Currently, using the power of the battle formation and precise command, they were able to fight evenly with the enemy, and the casualties were about the same for the time being. However, Li Chenglong was very clear in his heart. This was only the beginning, and it was only the beginning. After this, the army of the astral souls would inevitably fall into a passive position and fall into a decline. In such a situation where both sides are evenly matched, even if I use all my commanding ability, I can only hold on for an hour and a half at most, or even less. I can't deal with the enemy in front of me twice with the same move. The first time I caught them off guard, and the second time I'll be at my wit's end, and I'll be doomed. Then, at most 2 hours later, we'll be at a disadvantage. As the battle continues, at most 4 hours later, the astral souls will be at a disadvantage. This can't be helped. The battle in the air consumes a lot of spiritual energy, and the enemy doesn't have such concerns. This is the innate advantage of the dragons and phoenixes, and the main reason for the fall of the Brave Soul Pass was because of this. If what can come to help within 4 hours, we can still control the situation. If it's more than 4 hours, the situation will be out of control. My wishful thinking is too one-sided. I didn't expect the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix to be so powerful that they can shake the foundation of the battle formation like the 4 directions rotation by themselves, causing the performance of this trump card to be far worse than expected. Once we're at a disadvantage, if we want to maintain the battle formation and prevent the situation from worsening, I'm afraid that some of the higher-ups will die. 1 day and a night can be fought for, but when that time comes, the lives of the higher-ups will be exchanged. Can Boswa make it back in 4 hours? Even if he can make it back in 6 hours, the situation is really not looking good. Li Chenglong's face was calm, as if he had the pearl of wisdom and the overall situation in his hands. In fact, the worry in his heart was like a raging river and overturning sea. So you must come back soon. However, while Li Chenglong was worrying, Xiao Duo, whom he was eagerly waiting for, was still fighting with the Nether River Patriarch. He was still blowing up the Nether River Patriarch over and over again. The Nether River Patriarch was weakening visibly, but he still didn't die, as if he was proving the wisdom of the primeval era. As long as the blood sea doesn't dry, the Nether River won't die. But as time went by, the exhaustion of the long battle gradually affected both sides greatly. The dragons, phoenixes, and Cheelants were slightly stronger. Their overall strength had always been superior, and their individual strength also gave them an advantage in recovery. Even if they were covered in wounds, they could still maintain a considerable amount of vitality. On the other hand, the humans of the astral souls were already exhausted and couldn't continue. Even experts like Yu Dongtian, Yin Zhonghu, and Yu Moyan gradually felt that it was a little difficult to bear. Many ordinary soldiers were already on the verge of exhaustion. They felt that their vision was turning black and their legs were weak. If the golden drum sounded, most of them might fall asleep on the spot, or even die on the spot. So far, they've been fighting with all their strength for 3 consecutive hours without any break. There was no rest during this period, and they didn't even dare to take a breath. Because if they were careless, the price would be their own lives and the lives of their comrades. One by one, they panted violently, and there were people who died because of exhaustion. Yin Zhonghu's breathing was rapid, and his face was flushed. As the higher-ups, they were also the main force of the battle. They had always been facing the enemy head-on. If they didn't have the heaven-mending stone with them, which provided a considerable amount of help and recovery, they would only be more exhausted at this moment. Every once in a while, Yu Dongtian would ask this question. "Who's Z? Do you still have the heaven-mending stone? Have you used it up?" Yin Zhonghu replied, "I still have. How many more times can you use it?" Such a question and answer was already the 3rd time. "How many more times can you use it now?" "Less than 1 more time." "Understood." Yu Dongtian nodded. His own heaven-mending stone had been used up, and his elixirs were also close to being used up. Now, Yin Zhonghu's supplies were also running out. By Yundua's side, should also be almost done. The battle had reached a point where they couldn't hold on any longer. He looked behind him. Mu Yin, who was only a few steps away from him, was covered in blood. Her pretty face was pale, and her eyes were blank. Obviously, she was also exhausted to a considerable extent. Seeing Yu Dongtian turn to look at her, Mu Yin forced a smile, indicating that she could still fight. Yu Dongtian looked at Mu Yin, who was dressed in white, with heartache in his eyes. He grabbed an elixir and handed it over. "Eat it." "What about you?" "I still have it." In fact, this was already Yu Dongtian's last elixir, which was given to him by Zhuo Xiaoduo before. Because of its special spiritual power, Yu Dongtian had been reluctant to use it. Even in such a dangerous situation, he still kept it for a rainy day. And at this moment, it was obviously the time for a rainy day. Mu Yin shook her head, indicating that she didn't want it, but Yu Dongtian grabbed her and forced it into her mouth. Mu Yin only felt a warm current quietly sliding from her throat all the way to her dantian. Immediately, she felt a surge of power rising, and all the fatigue in her body disappeared. Even her own cultivation had taken a big step forward. Mu Yin only felt that her condition had never been better. The magical effect of this elixir was obvious. She felt Yu Dongtian's fingers gently stroking her face. The rough touch even made her face feel a little tender. She couldn't help but open her eyes wide and look at Yu Dongtian, looking at the man who had completely messed up her heart. All she could see was Yu Dongtian's painful eyes, which were full of vicissitudes of life. He looked at her face and said softly, "I'm sorry." Sorry? Mu Yin couldn't help but be stunned. Why did he say sorry? What time was it now? Hundreds of millions of troops were fighting, but she was waiting for an apology. In an instant, Mu Yin only felt mixed feelings in her heart. I really shouldn't have thought of you as Fenghua before. There was guilt in Yu Dongtian's eyes, and he said softly, "In this world where you can die at any time, I really shouldn't have flirted with you. That's very unfair to you." Mu Yin said, "It's all in the past," and Yu Dongtian laughed. "It's good that you don't blame me." He laughed at himself and said, "Although I knew I shouldn't, and knew that I could die on the battlefield at any time, I couldn't control myself in a short peace at that time. I always imagined that I could have more. I always imagined that some impossible things could happen. So I did a lot of ridiculous things. This is my fault. I always knew it was my fault." Yu Dongtian looked at Mu Yin and said, "Please, don't blame me. I don't blame you." Mu Yin smiled sweetly. "When the war is over, if you and I are still alive, I may not care whether I am a substitute for Nian Fenghua or not." Chapter 14:16. Mu Yin smiled sweetly. "When the battle ends, if you and I are still alive, I might not care if I'm a substitute for Nian Fenghua." She blushed and lowered her head. She felt shy. This was the boldest thing that Mu Yin, who had always been conservative, had ever said. On the other side, Yu Dongtian was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. "Thank you." But he also said silently in his heart, "Thank you, really, thank you." There was a sudden change in the air. Yu Dongtian suddenly turned his head, and his eyes suddenly burst with blood. He rushed back without hesitation. Mu Yin looked at Yu Dongtian's back, and shyness and sweetness faintly flashed in her eyes. "That's it. I won't struggle anymore, and I won't be pretentious." In front, there were 4 monstrous auras rushing over with an earth-shattering momentum. The commotion caused by the arrival of the newcomers was huge, and the impact was huge. For a moment, even the blood accumulated on the battlefield was swept away by the mighty momentum. This was the arrival of a strong enemy. The newcomers were 2 supreme experts under the ancestral dragon, and they were also the 2 deputy clan leaders of the dragon clan. They could be said to be the 2nd and 3rd figures of the dragon clan. On the other side, the 2 golden phoenixes flying over in the sky were also 2 supreme experts of the Phoenix clan who were only below the primordial phoenix. 4 peak zenith heavenly realm experts attacked together, and their momentum was overwhelming. This was a targeted strategy that the Dragon and Phoenix clan had formulated during the gap between the battle. The performance of the astral souls on the other side was outstanding. Not only was there willpower beyond imagination, but the military formation that could combine the strength of everyone was even more lethal to the 3 clans. The 3 clans of the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin clan wanted to destroy the astral souls in one battle, but they were not willing to lose too much. In this heavenly tribulation, all the clans in the heavens were in the tribulation. In the end, only one clan would benefit and become the main character of the world. In other words, every clan would inevitably be targeted by the other clans. It was only a matter of time. If they lost too much in this battle to destroy the astral souls, they would most likely become the next target. However, they did not have an effective method to deal with the astral souls battle formation, so they could only use the tactic of fighting force. In fact, this tactic was inspired by the battle formation of the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix against the astral souls. After a series of discussions, the three clans finally decided to send out their true high-end combat power and execute the decapitation tactic. Destroy the sharpness of the enemy's formation. It completely destroyed the other party's fighting spirit. Yu Xingqian and Lei Changtian's team were too powerful and might not be able to defeat them instantly. Therefore, they were not the first choice. The others, such as Dongfang Xingyang, were relatively weaker and might not be able to intimidate them. And the primary target of the three clans' discussion was Yu Dongtian and Yun Zhonghu. He was strong enough, but not strong enough to be at the peak of the invincible realm. Furthermore, this operation was at the peak of its operation, and it was at its most lethal moment for the three races. The armies of the Dragon race and the Phoenix race were utterly defeated. If it had not stopped them, they might drive straight into the enemy's camp and kill them directly. If they delayed any longer, it would be difficult to deal with them. They might as well concentrate their masters and attack with all their strength to destroy this team. Or they could take advantage of the opportunity to counterattack and completely disrupt the enemy's formation. In order to cooperate with the implementation of the plan, the ancestral dragon personally took action to restrain Yu Xingqian and Lei Changtian's team, so that they could not send reinforcements. The primordial phoenix also took action to suppress Qin Sha and the Sword King's team. The two sides were engaged in a fierce battle. The ancestral Qilin, on the other hand, faced Xiangqiong and Xiangbing and engaged in a frenzied battle with Zhan Xuejuan. The three clans had planned this series of actions for a long time. Everything came out of the blue. Before the army of the astral souls noticed anything strange, Yu Dongtian and Yun Zhonghu's side had already been separated and became a lone army. The left and right sides were firmly restrained. However, on the surface, the formation was not disrupted. It was still the original formation. The Dragon race and the Phoenix's plan was extremely accurate. It was also at this moment that the four great experts attacked together. They forcefully tore through space and appeared in front of the formation. Even if we have to pay the price of life and death, we must destroy this team. The four great experts came with the determination to die. They came menacingly and were overflowing with killing intent. Yin Zhonghu, Yu Dongtian, and Bai Yunduo saw the enemy's large-scale attack and felt danger at the same time. They instinctively went up to meet them. Their cultivations had improved greatly when compared to before. All of them had attained the golden immortal realm, and it was sufficient for them to be ranked in the top 10 of the human race. So, when compared to any one of the four great experts that were attacking them, they were at most slightly inferior. However, there were a total of 4 people attacking, and they only had 3 people. The difference in strength caused by being one person behind was already a huge gap between heaven and earth. Not to mention that these 4 peak experts of the Dragon race and the Phoenix race had all been recuperating for a long time. However, Yin Zhonghu, Bai Yunduo, and Yu Dongtian were exhausted. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were close to the end of their rope. Facing the attack of the powerful enemies, the last heaven-mending stone was also turned into powder in the hands of Yin Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo. Then the husband and wife went up side by side. Life and death depended on this battle. Understanding surged in their hearts at the same time. Yu Dongtian, who had been leading the charge in the battle, was now 3 steps behind the 2 of them. Suddenly, his body stopped, and then his face turned pale. He opened his mouth wide and tried his best to breathe. Suddenly, all the spiritual energy around the battlefield, along with countless impurities and evil aura, silently surged into his body. Yin Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo, who were in front of him, had already rushed forward without caring about their own safety. The 2 sides collided like Mars colliding with Earth. Their eyes met, and they were filled with determination. It was a feeling that they would not rest until they died, and they had no regrets even if they died 9 times. Yin Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo instantly realized that the other party also had the will to die in order to achieve their goal. Suddenly, they understood. There was no suspense in this battle. Someone was bound to fall. It was either them, Eudantion, or all three of them would die in this battle. As this thought flashed through their minds, the husband and wife looked at each other and saw the thoughts in each other's eyes. They could only agree with each other and had no regrets. Now that things have come to this, the two of us will stop here. However, we still have to do our best to ensure that Eudantion lives. The two of us can die, but Brother Xiaoyu can't die. He has suffered too much in his life. We can't let him die here like this. Mu Yin is still waiting for him, waiting to live together with him, waiting for him to restore Yin Fenghua's memories for her. Let's go. Yin Zhonghu let out a long roar. Together with his wife, they used their life-risking secret technique and actually blocked all four of the opponent's experts. As soon as Yin Zhonghu attacked, he used the most extreme energy ignition forbidden technique. He burned his own blood and qi to the limit, pushing all of his trump cards to the limit. The sky instantly shook, and millions of cracks appeared in the space within a radius of several hundred miles. Such a commotion caused the entire battlefield to fall silent for an instant. How could the high-level cultivators not know that there was a real top expert in this world who chose to fight with his life on the line? The more powerful a cultivator was, the harder it was to injure them, and the harder it was to die. Cultivators who had reached the top of the world could not be destroyed even if their ancestral land did not exist. They could form their own pattern and live forever. And for cultivators who had reached this level, if they did not have the will to fight to the death and release their foundation on their own, even if they were besieged by many cultivators of the same level, they could still be injured but not die, and take advantage of the gap to escape. Because of this, such a strong expert chose to fight with his life on the line, which meant that the battle had finally reached the most tragic and extreme moment. At the right time, a golden light flashed, and a golden phoenix fell from the sky. Its eyes were fierce and resolute, and it charged forward without turning back. Yin Zhonghu roared and rushed forward to meet it. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave will win. You dare to die, but do you think that I, a man with astral souls, am afraid of death? Boom! Yin Zhonghu and the golden phoenix collided without any hesitation. Both sides were prepared to die, and they fought with their lives on the line. Puff! Puff! Yin Zhonghu's sword pierced the golden phoenix's chest in an instant, and the extreme sword energy in the golden phoenix's chest exploded. The golden phoenix's golden phoenix scissors also pierced Yin Zhonghu's chest. At the last moment of their lives, Yin Zhonghu and the golden phoenix looked at each other and smiled. Everyone had the same plan. All roads lead to the same destination. Then let's go together. They were going to self-destruct and die together with the enemy. Whoosh! However, at this critical moment, an unprecedented hurricane that was enough to shock everyone suddenly arrived. The four masters, Yin Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo, were all shocked. Who was this? This kind of power, this kind of momentum, this kind of feeling, they had never seen it before except for Zhuo Changlu and his family. This momentum had clearly reached the level of sage to be. Who was it? Dongtian's body expanded, and in an instant he burst out with an extreme speed that was 100 times faster than his usual peak. Just as Yin Zhonghu and his wife had made the decision to sacrifice themselves, he had also made a choice. He decided to absorb all the spiritual aura, murderous aura, and evil aura on the battlefield into his body. He detonated his divine soul and divine sense in advance, and burned his vital essence and life force. The unprecedentedly vigorous spiritual essence would make his dantian swell infinitely, allowing him to have an amazing cultivation that was more than 5 times his own in a short period of time. Boom! Dantian, whose cultivation had soared, instantly appeared on top of the golden phoenix. Under his current extreme absorption state, the golden phoenix was now far behind him in terms of speed and cultivation. She was pushed out without any room to resist. A big hand moved at the same time, pulling out the golden phoenix scissors from Yun Jonghu's chest. Then, it turned into pure spiritual aura and absorbed it to its heart's content. He slapped Yun Jonghu's chest with his palm, but a strong and gentle force directly pushed the couple back. An unprecedentedly tyrannical aura instantly enveloped the other three experts of the opposing side. Then, like a huge whirlwind, it rushed out and crashed into the Phoenix Clan's army. Yin Zhonghu shouted, "You Dantian, you bastard!" Yu Dantian had already rushed out hundreds of miles with the four experts. Heroic laughter sounded in the air. "Little Huzi, you have been my scapegoat all your life. Today, I will also take the blame for you." Yin Zhonghu roared at the top of his lungs, "You Dantian, you bastard, you bastard." Tears suddenly burst out of his eyes. He only felt that his heart was about to explode at this moment. He and Yu Dantian were father's generation, and the friendship had been passed down. They had grown up together. They were playmates, companions, comrades, and comrades in arms. They had gone through fire and water together countless times in their lives. It was precisely because of this that Yun Zhonghu was willing to use his and his wife's lives to fight for Yu Dongtian's survival. But now, it had turned into Yu Dongtian sacrificing his and his wife's lives. This made Yin Zhonghu extremely sad. In the thick fog ahead, Yu Dongtian's hearty laughter, accompanied by the unwilling and angry roars of the four experts, rang out, "Goodbye. After all these years, I've been so tired. Finally, I could take a break." Boom! An unprecedentedly violent explosion sent Yun Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo, who were hundreds of miles away, flying. The heavenly king of the right of the human clan, Yu Dongtian. Self-destruction. This was the most extreme self-destruction that contained everything and exceeded one's own limits. Yu Dongtian was already at the peak of the grand heavenly realm, but he was willing to use his physical body as a vessel to drain the pond and catch the fish. He ignored everything else and absorbed all kinds of spiritual energy in the world. He even dispersed his divine sense and absorbed all the flowing substances in the world into his dantian. The result of this was that he could carry 10 times more energy than his limit. However, as long as he did this, even if there were no enemies in front of him, he would definitely not be able to survive. Although he was limited by the current environmental factors, especially Yin Zhonghu's sudden outburst, Yu Dongtian did not have the time to further absorb foreign objects, and he was still quite a distance away from reaching his limit. Even so, he had already gathered a huge amount of energy that exceeded his limit by 5 times. Therefore, the power of the self-destruction this time was truly earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Even the 4 experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans, as well as the millions of elites of the Dragon and Phoenix clans who were implicated, were instantly turned into dust that filled the sky. A large area of the entire battlefield was suddenly empty. This sudden and shocking wave caused both the enemy and our side to stand there in a daze for a long while. Only the mournful howls of Yun Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo resounded in the air. "Big brother, Brother Xiaoyu." Mu Yinyan's entire body immediately turned into an empty shell. She had no thoughts and only stared blankly at the empty area in front of her. There was no longer any vitality in her eyes. It was as if her soul, her divine sense, and everything about her had been hollowed out in an instant. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say something. However, when she opened her mouth, she could only make incoherent sounds. Tears had already covered her cheeks and flowed into a river. In a trance, it seemed that Yu Dongtian was still standing in front of her and saying to her guiltily, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have provoked you, but I couldn't help it. I always thought of you as her." The voice was still so gentle and magnetic. There was also an indescribable pain. She felt that her lips and teeth were still fragrant. That was Yu Dongtian stuffing a pill in her mouth. That domineering and irrefutable voice. "I've eaten it. What about you?" "I still have it." She could still vaguely hear her own voice saying with happiness and longing, "Maybe after this battle, I won't care about you treating me as a substitute." Mu Yinyan clearly felt her shyness when she said this, and even her neck was burning. However, the sweet longing she had at that time was as heartbreaking as it was now. It had only been a short time since that moment. How could they be separated by life and death and unable to meet again? She stood there blankly, tears falling like rain. She only heard her own voice saying softly, "I want you to treat me as Fenghua. I want to be your Fenghua. But you didn't even give me this chance. When my heart was frozen, you used all kinds of means to break the ice, but when I was tempted, you let go. What do you think I am? What do you think I am? I hate you. I hate you. I hate you." Mu Yinyan's tears fell like rain, but in front of her eyes, that heartless face seemed to appear again, whispering softly, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Mu Yinyan suddenly really understood the real meaning of Yu Dongtian's words of sorry, because he had already made up his mind. In this battle, if Yun Zhonghu was really destined to meet that disaster, she would die for Yun Zhonghu. Without hesitation, she had already been prepared. Mu Yinyan's eyes were teary and confused, and she was absent-minded. She suddenly remembered that one night before the battle, Yu Dongtian intentionally or unintentionally told her about Yun Zhonghu's destined disaster. For this reason, he drank half the night and kept muttering, How can I help Huzi avoid this disaster?" At that time, she comforted him, saying that maybe Zhuo Xiaoduo was wrong. After all, this kind of thing was vague and illusory. How could it be accurate? But Yu Dongtian immediately denied it. Xiaoduo can't be wrong. The one who tied the bell should untie it. Yes, I'm going to find Xiaoduo. Then he left with the wine jar. Thinking of this, Mu Yinyan suddenly felt a sharp pain in her heart. She blacked out, and her body fell down softly before she passed out. She murmured, "I'm willing to be Nian Fenghua's substitute. I'm really willing." Mu Yinyan didn't know. Yu Dongtian found Zhuo Xiaoduo that night and asked about Yun Zhonghu's disaster. Zhuo Xiaoduo once said something at that time. The heavenly Tao is constant, and the destiny cannot be changed. Only variables can be changed. In order to break the destiny, someone must defy the heavens and change the destiny. Defying the heavens is defying the destiny. Whether or not the destiny can be changed in the end is still unknown, but those who try to change the destiny will not have a good ending. When Zhuo Xiaoduo said this, he said it directly. At the same time, it was also a warning to the people around him not to act rashly. They might not be able to save people, but they would be implicated. After all, what he wanted was to rush over when the disaster came and use his peerless power of luck to resist this disaster for Yun Zhonghu. Those who changed their fate would not have a good ending, but it definitely didn't include people with great luck like him. However, human strength was sometimes limited, and human calculations were not as good as God's. Suddenly, there was an ambush from all sides. Zhuo Xiaoduo was assigned to Mingyi's group. Originally, Zhuo Xiaoduo could have arrived earlier. However, Yin Xiao arrived at this time and intercepted Zhuo Xiaoduo on the way. She gave him 2 gourds. Then, Zhuo Xiaoduo invited Fairy Yun Xiao to go with him. While he received strong help, he was also delayed for more than 10 minutes. Because of Yin Xiao's help, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan faced Mingyi. Their strength was unbalanced. They went from defeating the enemy to destroying the enemy. However, Blood River did not die, and Mingyi did not die. Hence, they wasted more time. If Fairy Yun Xiao had not accompanied them, with the arrival of Zhuo Xiaoduo and the gathering of the gourds, an old expert like Mingyi would naturally retreat immediately when he saw that things were not going well. He would not continue fighting. The battle over there would have ended long ago. However, when Yun Xiao came and the gathering of the gourds, she turned the original advantage into an overwhelming victory. It was an absolute victory that could wipe out the Azura. Zhuo Xiaoduo's fate and the subsequent victory against the Azura finally caused an irreparable regret, Yu Dongtian's death. That day, after Yu Dongtian heard Zhuo Xiaoduo's explanation, he had already secretly made a decision. If Yun Zhonghu's death could not be avoided, he would resolve this calamity for him. I'll die for him. That was a very fucked up thought. From that moment on, it did not waver. Zi had yet to leave behind a descendant. He could not die in battle. If Zi died in battle, what would happen to Yunduo? I'm her big brother. If I can't stand up for them, who else can? If I don't solve it for them, who will? My Yu family is already filled with descendants. I don't know how many generations have passed. My glory has been gone for many years. My life has long been a struggle at death's door. What meaning does it have? Rather than Zi dying in battle and Yunduo suffering for the rest of her life, it would be better for me to fight against the heavens and change my fate. Only then would my life not be in vain. My only regret is that I've let her down. Anyway, it was me who forced her. She should be able to walk out of the haze soon and find someone who loves her more. It was also from that day onwards that he began to make preparations. He was always making preparations. Until today, he deliberately fell back a few steps to give himself time to absorb enough energy. He used the most extreme and most cruel self-destruction to take down the enemy in one wave. He left enough safe space for Yun Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo. Enough safe distance. Enough safe time. He thought so and did so. Once he started, he carried out his thoughts to the end and advanced bravely. Therefore, when he died, he was so free and easy. He was also very heroic and even had a strong sense of satisfaction. Because back then, Fenghua had used this extreme to self-destruct. He had followed his beloved wife's example and had no regrets in this life. So much so that he felt that his life was perfect. I saved my brothers, saved my comrades, and even said sorry to Mu Yinyan. Dad is healthy and his cultivation is top-notch. He has been disappointed in me for so many years. Take care of yourself in the future. The Yu family is filled with descendants and has a prosperous bloodline. There is nothing I can't let go of, just like his usual style of passing the buck. That's it. I won't care about anything in the future. You guys can do as you see fit. Anyway, these things have nothing to do with me anymore, just like what he said when he passed the buck to others. These things have nothing to do with me. Yu Dongtian, in the end, passed the buck to everyone except him. He didn't seem to think about how guilty Yun Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo would feel in the future. He also didn't think about Mu Yinyan's feelings, or maybe he thought about it, however, for his brothers, he had no choice. In his heart, he didn't need to make a choice at all. Chapter 14:17. This earth-shattering explosion caused the battlefield to fall into an unprecedented silence. No matter if it was friend or foe, everyone's head was buzzing from this sudden explosion that many of the weaker cultivators fainted from the shock and fell from the clouds. The higher-ups of the astral souls all turned their heads to look at this side. They were all stunned and could not believe it. That was the heavenly king of the right self-destructed. It was so sudden. After a pause, after a few seconds of shock, everyone finally digested this news in their minds. A great sorrow suddenly surged into their hearts. Tears welled up in everyone's eyes at the same time. Nan Zhengxian and Dongfang Zhengyang let out a sorrowful cry. Heavenly King, Yu Xingqin's body, which was as majestic as a mountain, shook violently. His old face suddenly turned deathly pale. Lei Changtian held Yu Xingqin in time with tears in his eyes. However, he did not know what to say to comfort this father who had just lost his beloved son. After racking his brains for a long time, he only shouted, "Old Yu!" At this moment, even the words "my condolences" seemed so weak. It was so weak that he did not want to say it. Yu Xingqin closed his eyes. After a long time, he finally murmured, "This child, this child." In the end, he still did not get over it. He tried his best to control his emotions, but his voice couldn't stop trembling. He took a deep breath and finally opened his eyes. He patted Lei Changtian's hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." He took a deep breath and exhaled deeply. Tears gathered in his eyes, but he forced them back. However, they immediately rushed out. He did not want to let his tears fall, but he could not control his blurred vision. Finally, he choked with sobs and said, "Since Fenghua left, Yer has changed. He has changed completely. He has become more and more cynical and unscrupulous. But old Zwa and I both know that he doesn't want anyone to see his decadence and longing. Causing trouble everywhere and throwing the blame everywhere is just a way to cover up his true state of mind. He wants others to laugh and curse with him. That way, he will still feel that he exists. But after laughing and cursing, when he is alone, he will stay in his room and drink alone. He can't get over his past. Because of this, I beat him and scolded him too many times. In the end, I gave up. It's useless. His heart is empty. An empty person is no different from a person who pretends to be asleep. If the crisis of the continent had not been resolved, and the burden of being the heavenly king of the right had not been on his shoulders, giving him so many things to do, he would have killed himself long ago. He would not have been in so much pain for so long. Now, Yu Xingchen finally could not control his tears and said, "This child is finally free. Finally, he does not have to suffer so much anymore. From now on, there is no more lovesickness. He does not have to force himself to endure anymore. As his father, I am sincerely happy for him. I am really happy for him. His life has been too bitter and lonely." Although he said he was happy, his tears could not stop flowing. Lei Zhangtian let out a long sigh, and his tears fell instantly. He choked and said, "He is free. Yes, happy. This old man is also happy for him. Fenghua has been waiting for him for so many years. It's time to reunite." Yu Xingchen closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He said this, "Unfilial son, he left just like that, leaving me. Still not free. Fuck, I lost my mother when I was young, my father when I was young, my wife when I was middle-aged, and my son when I was old. Am I not more pitiful than him? He left just like that. What should I do? Unfilial son. Unfilial son. Who will take care of me? Do I have to take care of him? Unfilial son." He cursed loudly, but his voice trembled more and more. Tears flowed more and more, and finally he could not speak. On the side of the dragons and phoenixes, the primordial phoenix and the ancestral dragon opened their mouths and looked at the huge hole that was cleared by the explosion. They could not help but be dumbfounded. How could this be? The 4 experts who were only below the 2 of them had all been wiped out in today's battle. Moreover, it was a complete death without leaving behind even a trace of his soul. Wasn't it clearly a decapitation tactic that they had planned for a long time before taking action? If 1, 2, or even 3 of them died, the dragons of phoenixes would be able to afford the price of taking away the 3 targets of the other party. This was the possible outcome of the plan. After all, the true strength of both sides was only a hair's breadth apart. If they fought to the death with the will to die, only by paying an equal price could they exchange for the death of experts of the same level. However, the outcome of the battle was the complete opposite. The other party only had 1 person to self-destruct, but he had taken away 4 super experts on their side in one wave. At the same time, he had taken away 1,000,000 elites. After calculating this debt, it was really a complete loss. It was heartbreaking. Damn it. The ancestral dragon grabbed his hair angrily. We had long formulated an extreme battle strategy of exchanging lives for lives. But in the end, we still lost so much combat strength because of the other party's life. How stupid. How stupid. The primordial phoenix also looked vexed. If we die in battle, so be it. However, to die in battle like this, such a huge loss is really too heavy. The gains don't make up for the losses. Yu Dongtian's self-destruction not only destroyed the enemy, but also played an immeasurable role in delaying the battle. The enemy and us stopped at the same time, buying precious time for Li Chenglong. At the same time, it also greatly weakened the combined strength of the dragons and phoenixes. At this moment, in terms of peak combat strength, although the 3 races still had the upper hand, they no longer had the absolute upper hand. More importantly, the combat strength of the 3 races was imbalanced. Avenge the heavenly king. Nan Zhengxian's eyes were red, and silver light surged all over his body. He, who was already close to death, suddenly had a powerful force appear out of nowhere. Silver light almost illuminated the entire battlefield. With a furious roar, he charged forward without caring about anything. Stop! However, Li Chenglong ordered, change the formation. Change the formation. Li Chenglong was also crying, but as the commander in charge of the overall situation, his heart was still as cold as before. At this moment, he made the most correct decision. All of the Star Soul Realm martial practitioners were grief-stricken. Their desire for revenge was unprecedentedly high, and their morale was greatly boosted. But Li Chenglong knew that if they allowed this kind of hot blood to rush to their heads and directly charged into the camp of the dragons, phoenixes, and Shilans to take revenge for the Heavenly King, then this battle would probably end prematurely, with the Star Soul Realm's human race suffering a crushing defeat. What was the difference between rushing forward to avenge the Heavenly King without reason and fighting with the enemy's scattered troops? No matter how strong an individual's combat strength was, how strong their morale was, and how fearless they were, it didn't mean that they wouldn't die. It wasn't enough to erase the fact that their overall strength was too far behind the dragons, phoenixes, and Shilans. They couldn't miss the opportunity that the Heavenly King of the Right had fought for the humans of the astral souls. Otherwise, the Heavenly King of the Right would have died in vain. Change the formation. Those who disobey will be killed. Li Chenglong roared, gritting his teeth as he gave the order. This order could be said to be the most unreasonable at the moment. Therefore, Li Chenglong was instantly hated by almost the entire army. However, this was the most correct military order. The few commanders who were already dizzy from the shock were immediately awakened by Li Chenglong's order. They carried out the order without saying anything. They were all knowledgeable people, so how could they not know what to do at the moment? In an instant, the two armies changed their formation again. From a long snake, it turned into two dragons. Then, as they continued to charge forward, they turned into four sharp knives right before they clashed with the enemy. It was the most lethal, five-directional pointed killing formation. Avenge the Heavenly King. Li Chenglong roared at the right time. Instantly, the morale of the soldiers was raised to the peak, as if their chests were about to explode. Damn that Li Chenglong! Cold-blooded bastard! Countless people scolded Li Chenglong as they fought with their lives on the line. They scolded Li Chenglong because of his cold-blooded execution of military discipline. Furthermore, he only shouted out to avenge the Heavenly King at this moment. Everyone knew that he was using the Heavenly King's death to raise the morale of the soldiers. Just the words using the Heavenly King's death made the soldiers unhappy. However, it was undeniable that even though countless people were scolding Li Chenglong for being cold-blooded, everyone had to admit that this was the most appropriate time to shout out this slogan. Because of this sentence, the sharp knives were quickly formed, and the astral souls exploded with even more power than the first time. After a loud roar, the two armies clashed with unprecedented ferocity. The battle this time was much more intense than the previous one. On the side of the astral souls, everyone charged forward without any regard for their own safety. They only cared about killing the enemy and forgot about everything else. On the other hand, the morale of the dragon, phoenix, and Shilan races was inexplicably low. Actually, the reason was simple. Dongtian self-destruction just now took away not only the four super experts, but also the million-strong army. To the prideful three ancient clans, this was an unacceptable fact. It was clearly planned before taking action. It was clearly planned for a long time. It was clearly planned by them to kill the leader. Even the executors were determined to complete the mission at all costs. However, the final result was that a subtle feeling of we are inferior to the other party surged. While the balance of power was unbalanced, their mentality was also unbalanced. The battle became more and more intense, and the situation became more and more intense that both sides and the four races were in a stalemate. Every second, tens of thousands of lives were lost. Broken limbs and body parts were shot in all directions in the air. At this moment, blood and life had become the most worthless things in the world. They were thrown around randomly. Large amounts of them were lost. Yin Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo were the arrowheads. The two of them had entered an unprecedented state of madness. They shouted loudly and fought fiercely. They only wanted to kill the enemy and did not care about their own lives. These two unstoppable figures were like two sharp knives, piercing straight into the army of dragons and phoenixes. Li Chenglong's commands were getting sharper and sharper, and they were also getting more and more detailed. Li Chenglong was extraordinarily talented and calm. Although it was his first time commanding such a large-scale battle, as time went on, he became more and more proficient in commanding the battle. At this point in the battle, there was a subtle feeling that both sides were evenly matched. Nan Zhengxian, Dongfang Jingyang, Shimen Lai, and the others fought with all their might and scolded Li Chenglong. However, they were also madly admiring Li Chenglong in their hearts. No matter how much they disliked Li Chenglong, these few great commanders were at least clear about one thing. Fortunately, the commander of this battle was Li Chenglong. If it had been any of them, they would have lost this battle long ago. As a commander, the most taboo thing was to be emotional. The most terrifying thing was to be blinded by anger and hatred. That was even more terrifying than falling into the enemy's trap and ambush. To be fair, if it were them, they would have lost their minds the moment the heavenly king of the right died. Once they lost their ice heart, how could they calmly judge the situation and not lose? However, Li Chenglong was able to calmly and coldly take advantage of the death of a heavenly king. He took advantage of the slight difference in the changes in the soldiers of both sides to turn the situation back to a stalemate where the two sides were originally inferior in strength and numbers. He was able to turn the situation back to a stalemate. As long as this stalemate was formed, then at least they could hold on for more than 2 hours. This was too advantageous for their side, who was waiting for reinforcements. What a heartless, cold-blooded, heartless brat. This bastard's temperament has really reached a certain level. But his cold-bloodedness has really reached a level that no one can compare to. He is indeed the military advisor of a generation. He is so fucking heartless. After this battle ends, if I'm still alive, I will definitely beat him up. 4. Heavenly King Yu. That on one side of the battlefield, a hole was suddenly torn in space. Zhou Xiaoduo appeared, sweating profusely. He had sped all the way back, using all his energy to rush back. He had torn space 7 times in total, using all his energy to travel a long distance each time. He was so tired that he almost stuck his tongue out. After rushing for so long, he finally arrived at this time. He immediately saw both sides fighting with their lives on the battlefield. Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he turned invisible and stealthily approached the Qilin tribe. He even gave orders in the Tower of Annihilation. After we get out, we will be able to attack the Qilin tribe in a single leap. Everyone, be prepared. Prepare for the most accurate surprise attack. Unleash the greatest effect of the surprise attack. Yes, the officers and soldiers were all excited. Hiding the troops in the Tower of Annihilation was too advantageous. The troops on one side were well prepared and could directly appear next to the enemy. The moment the enemy had no time to react, a massacre would have already been completed. They wouldn't even have to pay too many casualties. This couldn't be described with just the word satisfying. So, Xiaoduo waved his hand, and the doors of the Tower of Annihilation opened. In the blink of an eye, millions of soldiers rushed out of the Tower of Annihilation like a silent flood. It was really soundless, and it was flowing with familiarity. Everyone shut their mouths tightly. They didn't even dare to breathe. That was a collective action of holding their breaths. In another second, Zhou Xiaoduo's army had already charged into the Qilin race's defenseless army from the flank like a thunderbolt. Instantly, blood rained down, and the smell of blood filled the air. Countless members of the Qilin tribe's army were reduced to torn corpses. So, Xiaoduo also released 7 gourds at the same time and ordered them to join the battle. Kill them. With a boom, the 7 gourds, together with the god-killing spear Yin Shursi, rushed into the Qilin tribe's army. Countless soul fragments and the mighty death chi made the 7 gourds and the god-killing spear, Yanshursi unprecedentedly excited. Zhuoxiao Duo laughed sinisterly. Just as he was about to pull out his 9-9 cat hammer to join the battle, he suddenly heard the angry shouts of the soldiers in the Star Soul Army who were fighting with their lives on the line. Avenge the Heavenly King. Zhuoxiao Duo felt dizzy and almost fell from the clouds. Avenge the Heavenly King? Was he still one step too late? He was here, but he still couldn't avoid the misfortune of his senior brother's death. He felt as if his entire body was about to explode. A surge of hot blood rushed to his head. He suddenly let out a roar and controlled the 9-9 cat hammer. Like a thunderbolt from the ninth heaven, it smashed into the Kirin clan's army. He teleported to the center of the Qilin tribe's army and attacked with all his strength. The Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer with the most destructive power reappeared in the world. With extreme anger and grief, Zhuoxiao Duo didn't even realize that when he attacked, a shackle in his body was quietly broken. Because of this, his cultivation had entered a new realm. The mighty spiritual qi was boundless and surging in his body, but it was always under his control. This was a realm where there was no man, no self, the unity of man and nature, and he was the sole owner of all laws. However, he didn't realize that his heart was full of grief. He roared crazily and rushed into the Qilin tribe's army. Boom! With one hammer, blood rained down from the sky. The Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer in Zhuoxiao Duo's hands had already surpassed the Great Flood Shaman in terms of lethality. In fact, it was a huge difference. With this move, not only did the Kirin clan fall in large numbers, but even the space around them collapsed bit by bit. The Qilin tribe's experts who stopped at the mid-stage of the Zenith Heavenly Realm were smashed into smithereens by Zhuoxiao Duo's crazy hammer. In less than 10 breaths of time, Zhuoxiao Duo had already broken through the Qilin tribe's army. He didn't even turn back. With a roar, he rushed into the Phoenix tribe's army formation. From afar, a giant that was thousands of feet tall was waving a huge hammer that was as big as a castle. In the Phoenix tribe's army formation, he turned into a black whirlwind, a whirlwind of slaughter. As he continued to dance, the images of the universe, the sun, and the moon appeared clearly in the sky, as if they were real. It was as if an entire real world appeared in the sky with the surging of the hammer wind and fell in a picturesque disorder. There was a kind of messy beauty and also the beauty of slaughter. The bodies of the phoenix and the various divine birds of the vassal tribes were flying in the sky. The moment it flew up into the air, it was the moment it disintegrated into fragments that filled the sky. It was the moment of death. For a moment, the sky was filled with 7 colors, magnificent and boundless. Those were countless colorful feathers that covered the sky. Reinforcements are here. Nan Zhongqian let out a long shout. Boys, our reinforcements are here. Kill the enemy. Kill the enemy. Avenge the Heavenly King. Reinforcements are here. The Astral Souls soldiers had hot tears in their eyes as they roared loudly. Avenge the Heavenly King. Exterminate the 3 tribes. Kill. Zhuoxiao Duo's arrival, the sneak attack of the elite army, and his strong entry into the battle completely changed the situation of the battle, overturning the original battle situation. The ancestral Gragon and the primordial phoenix suppressed Yu Xingqian and Lei Changtian. In this part of the battlefield, they already had the absolute advantage. Even if the 2 of them fought to the death and didn't retreat, there was no way they could turn the situation around. But at this moment, their hearts trembled violently. They turned to look at Zhuoxiao Duo, who was wreaking havoc among their tribes, and gasped in unison. Too fierce. Wasn't this too fierce? The ancestral Gragon and the primordial phoenix knew that if they were in the same position as Zhuoxiao Duo, they wouldn't be able to achieve such results. In other words, this guy is actually more impressive than me. The 2 clan leaders saw with their own eyes that the ancestral Qilin had already revealed his true form. His body was surrounded by 7-colored divine light that dyed the entire sky in 7 magnificent colors. It seemed extremely mystical and sacred. But he charged forward again and again, but he couldn't take more than 10 blows from Zwishaoduo. The ancestral Qilin was about to scream and spit out 7-colored blood as he retreated. When they clashed again, he was smashed back thousands of meters. And this time, Zwishaoduo charged forward even faster than the ancestral Qilin's retreating figure. Big 7-colored lizard, where do you think you're going? Eat my 100,000 hammers. Hammer after hammer smashed down on the ancestral Qilin's huge body like a violent storm. The ancestral Qilin retreated and dodged while screaming. The other party's strength was too great. The weapon was too big. He couldn't dodge at all. He was too big of a target in his true form. He wasn't as agile as the other party and was equivalent to a live target. He had no choice but to revert to his human form. But he was far from the other party's strength. The ancestral Qilin was extremely miserable. Continuous screams shook the heavens and earth. He didn't want to scream and wanted to save face, but it was too painful hearing Zwishaoduo shout 100,000 hammers. The ancestral Qilin's heart immediately felt weak. Not to mention 100,000 hammers. The invincible ancestral Qilin would probably turn into dust after a few dozen more hammers. When the entire Qilin clan saw such a situation, they all kept quiet out of fear. The ancestral Gragon and the primordial Phoenix were also shaken when they saw this scene. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Could it be that this kid broke through to the Saint Realm? The two flashed and instantly left the battlefield, speeding towards the ancestral Qilin. They had to go. In 100 breaths' time, the ancestral Qilin would be hammered to death by Zwishaoduo. Zwishaoduo used all his strength and blasted out his ultimate moves one after another, suppressing the ancestral Qilin until he couldn't breathe. The ancestral Qilin, who had suppressed Sword Saint Qinsha with his own strength just now, couldn't unleash his full strength against Zwishaoduo. Even though he used all his skills and all his Dharma treasures, he could only passively take the beating and couldn't change the situation at all. He was even shocked to discover that all his Dharma treasures, including Khanate numinous treasures, were useless against Zwishaoduo's dual hammers. What kind of monster is this? The ancestral Qilin wanted to cry. Too strong. I can't beat him. Chapter 14:18. After the ancestral Qilin's countless Dharma treasures, with a casual strike of the 9-9 kitty hammer, the slightly inferior ones were shattered on the spot without any room to be used. Even the slightly stronger Khanate spirit treasures were sent flying far away like baseball balls after being smashed by the spirit treasures. Fortunately, there were 7 gourds following behind. They were the most sensitive to the aura of Khanate's spiritual treasures. After seeing it, the space gourd given by Yuanshi immediately rushed over and kept it into their stomachs. Occasionally, there were fishes that slipped through the net, but they would also be swallowed by the purple gold gourd given by Taoist Tai Ching. It was unknown if they came from the same origin, but the 7 little fellows had a common problem: greed. And it was the insatiable kind. As long as it was complete, they would take it all. As they hovered above the battlefield, the bodies of countless high-grade dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins who died in the battle were all swallowed into their stomachs before they could break into pieces. One had to know that these were cultivation resources that could only be encountered by chance and not sought after, whether it was for the gourds or human cultivators. Slowly, as the 7 gourds joined the battlefield, the increasingly tragic battlefield showed a trend of cleaner and cleaner. The ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix came to the rescue at lightning speed and blocked Zwishaoduo's 9-9 kitty hammer. As soon as they came into contact, the 2 ancient powerhouses felt their arms go numb and their hearts trembled even more. The ancestral Qilin, on the other hand, rolled and crawled out of the battlefield. The ancestral Qilin was about to cry when he finally came out. When he was pressed down and beaten up, he didn't even have time to take elixirs to recover. He only felt that he had become a piece of iron and was being hammered by a blacksmith. But I'm not iron. Just 2 or 3 more hammers. and I'll be smashed to death. After vomiting a few mouthfuls of seven-colored blood in pain, he felt that his chest was a little better. He hurriedly took out elixirs and stuffed them into his mouth in large handfuls. I was scared to death. Originally, he thought that after this battle, the Dragon and Phoenix clans had lost a lot of elites. If the two clans didn't want to be destroyed, the Qilin clan had to be the leader. It was even possible for the three clans to be united and the Qilin clan to be the leader. However, after experiencing Zhuo Xiaoduo's surprise attack, the Qilin race suffered heavy losses, even more than the Dragon race and the Phoenix race. He himself was even more injured. It was truly a tragedy. Just a little bit more, and his body and Dao vanished, turning into fine powder. The ancestral Qilin swallowed the pills in large quantities and felt the warm medicinal power continue to spread through his meridians. A comfortable feeling grew throughout his body, and he finally let out a sigh of relief. He was filled with gratitude towards the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix for coming to his rescue. If the three races were to truly unite at that time, it wouldn't be impossible for the three races to ride side by side, right at this moment. Hurry up and do it. An anxious roar could be heard. Ancestor Gragon fell straight out of his mouth, with blood gushing out of his mouth. I didn't save you to let you watch a show. Hurry up and come up. The ancestral Qilin hurriedly turned his head to take a look and could not help but be shocked. Just as he was taking the pills to recover, the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix, who were fighting Zhuo Xiaoduo together, were actually in a sorry state. They were lacking in strength. The two of them were clearly working together to attack Zhuo Xiaoduo from the left and right, but in reality, they were easily repelled by Zhuo Xiaoduo. The spinning sledgehammer was as heavy as a mountain. The primordial phoenix circulated the phoenix hoe with all her might and counterattacked continuously. However, in the face of Zhuo Xiaoduo, such a head-on collision actually caused her to spit out blood and retreat in less than 10 moves. The ancestral dragon was also forced to retreat. He called for the ancestral Qilin to join the battle and rush back to help the primordial phoenix. Now that the battle situation had changed, the three of them had to join forces to fight against Zhuo Xiaoduo. If any one of them died first, the other two would not be spared. This is the combat power of a saint. After confirming Zhuo Xiaoduo's strength, the ancestral dragon roared angrily. Zhuo Xiaoduo, saint-level combat power, is not allowed to participate in mortal battles. This is the rule. You have broken the rule. You have broken the rule. Qilin, why are you still looking? What are you looking at? Hurry up. The ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix were drenched in sweat. Under Zhuo Xiaoduo's continuous attacks, they staggered and spat out blood. They were in a sorry state. Zhuo Xiaoduo's twin hammers were extremely powerful. They smashed back and forth like shooting stars chasing the moon. He cursed angrily. To hell with your rules. I don't care what your rules are. I'm the rules now. What are you roaring for? If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you shouting? The ancestral Qilin widened his eyes. What? What was going on? Not only were the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix unable to deal with Zhuo Xiaoduo, but they were also forced into an absolute disadvantage. After coming to his senses, he hurriedly got up and joined the battle with a roar. When he rushed over, it happened that the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix were sent flying. The ancestral Qilin took advantage of this opportunity to face Zhuo Xiaoduo, who had completely erupted. With two hammers, the Qilin pestle that the ancestral Qilin had cultivated was smashed into pieces. He was sent flying with a mouthful of blood. The speed at which he was sent flying was even faster than the speed at which Gu Yong rushed over. However, Zhuo Xiaoduo did not hesitate at all. He continued to raise his hammers energetically and charged toward the ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix. The ancestral dragon and primordial phoenix cursed in their hearts. This Qilin, are you fucking here to be a joke? We were hoping that you would block us and let us take a breather. In the end, you retreated faster than you charged. What's the use of having you? However, The two heads could not say that the ancestral Qilin did not try his best. After all, his treasure, the Qilin pestle, had been destroyed in those two attacks. This could only mean that Zhuo was too strong. He was ridiculously strong. Unfortunately, there was no point in recognizing reality now. Zhuo rushed over again. The two cursed as they tried their best to block and dodge. However, the other party's hammers were too big. In Zhuo's hands, they were not clumsy at all. Instead, they were nimble. Wasn't this asking for their lives? Boom! Another hammer came crashing down and brushed past the ancestral dragon's waist. The ancestral dragon spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying with a pale face. For a moment, his organs burned, and he almost fainted. Boom! 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 So Xiaoduo became more and more courageous as he fought. He could not help but find it strange. He was facing 3 clan heads at the same time. Why did he feel so relaxed and easy? It was as if they were 3 children and he was an adult. That was probably how he felt. Of course, he could beat them up however he wanted. No matter how they struggled, no matter how stubbornly they resisted, they could not escape from his palms. Finally, he thought of the sage that the ancestral dragon had shouted. He could not help but think, could it be that I have reached the sage's cultivation that they mentioned? The pinnacle of this world? But why didn't I feel anything special? There was no vision of heaven and earth. Didn't they say that when a sage appeared, purple chi would come from the east for 30,000 miles? He really did not feel anything at all. It should be just a little bit more. Thinking of his own cultivation foundation, Xiaoduo understood a little. He should have the combat power of a sage, but his realm should not be there yet. As Xiaoduo led reinforcements and entered the battle, the originally evenly matched situation was reversed almost instantly. After 100 breaths of time, the situation of the battle had become one-sided. After that, Xiaoduo blocked the ancestral dragon, primordial phoenix, and ancestral Qilin by himself. Immediately, all the high-level combat power of the astral souls were released. All troops attack. Finish this battle in one go. Li Chenglong jumped up from the commander's seat without a care for his image. He howled like a madman. All troops attack. Reserve troops, all of you attack. Don't let anyone escape. Today, I swear to destroy the 3 clans. We will not rest until we are dead. Once the order to attack was given, he did not even give any commands. Instead, he drew his long sword and charged in the army of dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins. He started a massacre. In the army, Li Chenglong's combat power was second only to Xiaoduo and Xiaoyan. He was also a true god of war. However, as the military advisor, he had to lead the army to the final battle. That was why he could not enter the battlefield personally. Now that the battle had been decided, Li Chenglong naturally could not hold it in anymore. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged into the battle personally. He wanted to vent the anger that he had been suppressing for so long. Vengeance for Teacher Qin. Vengeance for Wang Lingyun. Vengeance for Heavenly King Yu. And vengeance for the billions of soldiers who had died in this battle. This vengeance and hatred was irreconcilable. From all directions, the sound of tsunami could be heard. The humans of the astral souls had finally started their attack. Yu Xingqian, Lei Chantian, Sword Sovereign Qinsha, Yu Moyan, and the others. Suppressing their fatigue, they stuffed a bunch of elixirs into their mouths. Before they even chewed, they had already charged forward. They wanted to give it their all for this battle. Kill them all. Take revenge for the Heavenly King of the Right. Take revenge for the Heavenly King of the Right. The sound of spring thunder also seemed to shake the world. Xiaoduo was still fighting with the ancestral dragon, ancestral phoenix, and ancestral Qilin. He was getting more and more proficient. Occasionally, he would find the time to throw out thousands of hammers and destroy tens of thousands of high-level experts of the dragon and phoenix races. Just as he was about to take advantage of the victory and finish the battle, he heard a voice that sounded like spring thunder. However, he was stunned at once. The Heavenly King of the Right? How could it be the Heavenly King of the Right? Could it be that the king of Zhuolu, his senior brother, Yin Zhonghu, did not die? The one who died was actually dead. Xiao's mind raced as he recalled. He could not help but recall that night when Yu Dongtian looked for him. Is Yin Zhonghu's life and death tribulation true? It's true. How shall we break it? So Xiaoduo immediately recalled his response. Suddenly, a strong sense of sourness rose from his heart. At that moment, he wished that he could slap himself a few times. The heavenly Tao is constant. Destiny cannot be changed. Only variables can change. In order to break the destiny, someone has to defy the heavens and change their fate. It is unknown if they can change their fate in the end. However, those who try to change their fate will most likely not have a good ending. Xiaoduo completely understood. It turned out that Yu Dongtian had already made a decision from then on. He was determined to block this calamity for his brother, defy the heavens, and change his fate, using his body to replace him. Xiaoduo's heart surged like a tsunami. He felt his eyes ache for some reason, and tears were about to flow out. The heavenly king of the right, the heavenly king who had deceived the human race for tens of thousands of years, one of the pillars of the human race, he actually left just like that. At that moment, Xiaoduo heard something that made his soul tremble even more. Kill all the dragons and phoenixes. Avenge Teacher Qin. The voice was very close to him, as if it was shouting at him. Teacher Qin? Teacher Qin Fanyang? What happened to Teacher Qin? Xiaoduo's body shook violently. He turned his head in the direction of the voice and saw Li Chenglong's face full of tears. He was roaring and rushing toward him. He was shouting hoarsely, "Kill them all! Avenge Teacher Qin!" They killed Teacher Qin. Xiaoduo felt an explosion in his mind. It was as if all the emotions and everything in the world suddenly disappeared and no longer existed. His entire mind was blank. There was only one message echoing in his mind. They killed Teacher Qin. For a moment, Xiaoduo's aura suddenly surged. An endless, terrifying aura with the power to destroy the world. It rushed out. The dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin, who had just rushed forward, retreated in unison. They did not dare to act rashly, and their eyes were filled with horror. Bullshit! Xiaoduo roared and instinctively denied. Li Chenglong, you're talking nonsense. How dare you curse Teacher Qin? I'll smash you to death with my hammer. At this moment, Li Chenglong was stirring up his maximum strength and infusing it into the long sword in his hand. It turned into a condensed qi light sword that was thousands of feet long. It swept left and right aggressively. It was now less than 10,000 meters away from Xiaoduo. It's true. The dragon and phoenix races used their racial talents to travel through the sky and arrived above Shangjing. At that time, we were all at the front line and were too far away to help. Only Teacher Qin arrived in time. In order to protect Shangjing, Teacher Qin stepped forward bravely and fought against the three races alone. In the end, he died heroically in battle. However, it was his delay that allowed him to hold on until we arrived. Otherwise, regardless of the outcome of today's battle, Shangjing would have been destroyed, and its people would have been plunged into misery and suffering. Teacher Qin was killed by them. Li Chenglong said tearfully, "You must not let them escape." Xiaoduo's consciousness was in a daze. He muttered, "Teacher Qin really died? He still hasn't used the red spider lily. He died. Then, what about the reincarnation of the old principle? Could it be that my words are true? That's a wrong fate, destined to be deeply in love but shallow in fate, missing each other every time." In a daze, Qin Fanyang's stern but kind face seemed to appear in front of him, looking at him with a fierce face. "If you provoke me again, I'll beat you up," Qin Fanyang said. Xiaoduo's heart was instantly filled with sorrow. He muttered, "If you can, come out and beat me up. What's the point of talking without doing?" Woo-woo. At this moment, his mind was in a daze. He didn't know where his heart was and couldn't find a place to return to. Back then, when Qin Fanyang was asked to return to be the principal, so Changlu and Zhuo made up countless excuses to coax Qin Fangyang back. The words that day were still ringing in his ears. They said that there would be a battle between the higher-ups in the future. Qin Fangyang could imitate Wang Feihong and step forward at the critical moment as a surprise attack. Every word was firm and resolute. If that day really came, Qin Fangyang would definitely be the first choice to go to war. Of course, with Qin Fangyang's strength and cultivation at that time, it wasn't unrealistic to use him as a backup. There was no doubt about it. However, as the situation developed, that kind of situation became less and less likely to happen. However, after a discussion between Zhuo Changlu and Zhuo Xiaoduo, they didn't summon Qin Fangyang again. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding did have some selfish motives when it came to the issue of Qin Fangyang's placement. On one hand, they were grateful for Qin Fangyang and He Yuanyue's sacrifice for Zhuo Xiaoduo. On the other hand, they were grateful for their unswerving loyalty. Even if they were separated by life and death, they would still look after each other if they really wanted to facilitate the reunion of these two lovers. Letting Qin Fangyang become the principal of Second High School was based on this consideration. This pair of lovers had already suffered a lifetime of hardship. They sincerely hoped that they would be able to reunite. Even if it was in He Yuanyue's next life, they would be reunited after all. Especially with the existence of the red spider lily, there wouldn't even be the problem of recovering their memories. It would allow them to experience a rare taste of happiness. This was the joint plan of Zhuo Xiaoduo, Wu Xiaoyan, Li Qinglong, Zhuo Changlu, and Wu Yuding. The placement of Qin Fangyang. Originally, this plan was carried out smoothly. Qin Fangyang also stayed in Second High School well and enjoyed several years of peace and quiet. However, Qin Fangyang never forgot the task entrusted to him that day. Not only did his cultivation not languish, but it also improved a lot. Some time ago, he suddenly felt that something wasn't right. The front line was about to start fighting, but there was still no news about his placement. Therefore, he took the initiative to contact Zhuo Changlu. Zhuo Changlu felt that if Qin Fangyang came to the front line, where experts were as common as clouds, he should be fine. His entire family was a quasi-sage. In one force, there were 4 quasi-saints, more than 10 top-grade innate spirit treasures, 1 quasi-saint, and more than 10 peak grand heavenly realm experts. To be complacent, such a comprehensive combat power was not much inferior to the demon race, which was known as the strongest among all the races. Not to mention, his son and daughter had a solid foundation, and their foundation, potential, and luck were amazing. Although they had only reached the quasi-saint realm not long ago, they were outstanding talents among the quasi-saints, and few could match them. To put it bluntly, even the Demon Emperor and Dong Wang might not be a match for Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan. If Qin Fangyang wanted to come, there was nothing wrong with it. No matter what, they could ensure his safety. Therefore, they agreed without thinking. After a short discussion, they informed Qin Fangyang of the matter. But who would have thought that when Qin Fangyang was only halfway there, far away from Shangjing and much closer to White-Haired Mountain than White-Haired Mountain, the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin clans launched an attack from all directions. If Qin Fangyang was only following a military order to go to White-Head Mountain, no one could say anything about it. This was a military order. However, Qin Fangyang immediately turned around and went to Shangjing. Then, such a tragic event happened. No matter who it was, this was something that no one had expected. What he said in jest at the time stood up at the critical moment, and it became a prophecy, causing this farewell. Destiny made fools of people. Those who were destined to die did not die. Those who defied the heavens and changed their fates died, and those who were well prepared could not be protected. The situation had changed to this point. Zhuo Xiaoduo was so regretful that his intestines turned green. Could it be that this was retribution for boasting that he could predict all the heavenly secrets and protect everyone around him? He began to think that if he had let Qin Fangyang go to Whitehead Mountain in the beginning, perhaps this would not have happened at all. At least he would not have died. When he thought of this, he looked at the ancestral dragon, ancestral phoenix, and ancestral Chelan in front of him. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. It was these few fellows who killed my teacher Chin. Unforgivable. Don't let any of them go. Today, the three races will be wiped out and will not exist in this world. Zhua Xiaoduo's body was full of murderous intent. It added 30% gloominess, 30% grief, 30% anger, and 30% sharpness. So Xiaoduo in this state made the ancestral dragon and ancestral phoenix, who were hundreds of meters away, feel as if their hearts were being squeezed by a hand. They actually felt breathless. The battlefield was filled with incessant screams. The masters of the astral soul's human race became more and more ferocious as they fought. Now, the situation had changed greatly. It was no longer a battle, but a one-sided massacre. Later, the battlefield was filled with cries of "Take revenge for the heavenly king of the right. Take revenge for Teacher Chin," and so on. Many vassal races of the dragon, phoenix, and Chelan races began to flee in all directions. At this moment, even their last bit of confidence had collapsed. It could even be said that even the minimum courage to fight had been completely destroyed and disappeared. Now, there was only fear in their hearts. Originally, they had the advantage in numbers and thought that they would definitely win this battle. Who could stop the three races when they joined forces? But now, the leaders of the three races were beaten up like buns and were on the verge of death. On their side, there were almost no superclass experts, and a large number of those with weaker cultivation were killed. Many people thought that it was safer to hide in the center of the army, but they couldn't escape the fate of being shot to death. What kind of world was this that the only thing that everyone felt was that they had lost the most basic guarantee of safety? What else could they do if they didn't escape? The dragon, phoenix, and Chelan can't even protect themselves now. The situation has been set, and they have no strength left to protect us vassal races. If we stay here, only death will await us. Let's escape and leave it to fate. However, in this kind of battle, either the troops would fight stubbornly or they would fight until they won. Only when the battle ended would it be considered over. The way the vassal races of the three races fled midway was truly seeking their own deaths. It was much easier to chase down these people who had lost their morale than to deal with an organized enemy. The deserters of the three races were easily killed by the experts of the astral souls as soon as they were caught up. They no longer had the courage to fight back. The troops of the three races who were still stubbornly resisting were surrounded by the army of the astral souls, who had the absolute advantage. Countless high-level demon beasts were captured alive, and they hurriedly begged for mercy. I'm willing to be a human's mount. Don't kill me. I'm willing to be a human's mount, a spiritual pet, or a toy. I'm willing to. I can fly, I can run, and I'm good-looking. I'm willing to be a human's. In short, under the threat of life and death, the three races showed all kinds of ugly behaviors in order to survive. Once they lost the pride in their bloodline, the so-called primordial dragon, phoenix, and Chelan races were nothing more than this. This was especially true for the vassal races of the three races below them. Some of the warriors of the astral souls hesitated because of this. They turned around and waited for further instructions from their superiors, other than thinking that by taking captives, they could further dissolve the last bit of morale of the members of the three clans. Subconsciously, they thought that it would be very cool to have such a beast as a mount, and it could even further improve their battle prowess. Dragon knights, phoenixes, and Chelan mounts. They were happy just thinking about it. So Xiaoduo roared to the sky, "We don't accept captives." Almost at the same time, Li Chenglong roared, "Kill them all. Every one of their hands is stained with the blood of your comrades. Every one of their hands has the lives of your brothers. You want to forgive them?" Zhua Xiaoduo roared angrily. "How can you face your brothers in heaven when you have such selfish thoughts? Do you want to show off how cool your divine beast mounts are when you return home to your brothers' orphans and widows? Do you still have any sense of shame?" With this loud roar, the countless star soul soldiers seemed to have been enlightened. In that instant, their minds became clear again. Yes, sir. We don't accept captives. Kill them all. Bright and shiny weapons rose into the air once again. They fell down. Blood flowed like a sea. The sky was dyed red. Brothers, we've avenged you. Brothers, we've won. Heavenly King, do you see this? We've won. Countless warriors who were close to you, Dongtian burst into tears. You Dongtian sworn brothers, the masters of heaven, earth, sun, moon, and star, were all gone. After this battle, only the wounded master you was left. He racked his brains, tears streaming down his face as he desperately searched for his brother's corpses. But when he got there, he only found half of Master Yu's head. As for the rest, they had already turned into fine powder. He looked up to the sky and howled. He wrapped all the daily necessities of his brothers together, lit a fire, knelt down, and kowtowed a few times, shouting, "Heavenly King, brothers are here, heaven and earth, life and death." Before his voice died away, he broke his own heart meridians, burned his own divine sense, and killed his own soul. His wounded body fell into the raging fire with a loud crash. In an instant, there were no bones left, and he no longer existed in this world. He was very determined to die, and he didn't give anyone a chance to stop him. Looking at the bodies that were quietly burned in the fire, many people couldn't help but cry. The battle hasn't ended yet. Why did you leave in such a hurry? Nan Zhengxian burst into tears. Go, don't disturb them. Yu Xingqian's expression was bleak. He seemed to have aged countless years in an instant. Even his usually straight back seemed to be bent. His brothers, the people he fought for all his life, are all gone. He lives alone. It's really worse than death. Let's fulfill his wish. That on Zhuo Xiaoduo's side. Zhuo Xiaoduo held 2 hammers in his hands and strode toward the ancestral dragon, primordial phoenix, and ancestral qilin. The 3 of them were pale, and the corners of their mouths were full of blood. Only their gazes, which were fixed on Zhuo Xiaoduo's approaching figure, were still ferocious. As ancient powerhouses, they knew the principle of survival of the fittest. Even if they knew that they were going to die, they would not beg for mercy. Zhuo Xiaoduo. The primordial phoenix gritted her teeth and said in a deep voice, "Don't tell me you don't want your wife to live." Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned. What do you mean? The primordial phoenix sneered, "Ha ha. Fate really makes fools of people. Even though you have established the foundation of becoming a saint, you still can't escape the trap of karma." Back then, our phoenix race had already left behind a backup plan. When we were destined to leave this continent, we decided to leave behind the phoenix bloodline and the essence of the phoenix ancestor on this continent. Once the phoenix bloodline is formed, it will automatically give birth to a baby. Your family was extremely lucky. As the strongest astral souls on the continent, your parents discovered this baby and brought it home to raise it. In the end, it actually became your family's child bride. It's your wife, Zhuo Xiaoyan. That's the cause. However, there are naturally consequences. Your wife is a backup plan that our race had set up long ago. How could we let her go? Even though she was born from the will of heaven and earth and naturally took human form, she is still related to the essence of our phoenix race. Do you really think that our race would give you a peerless genius seed for nothing? We knew that such a prodigy existed, but we didn't summon her back. This calamity of heaven and earth has affected all the races. Our race has already set up a seed for all the races. The dark phoenix of the demon race is not an exception. The primordial phoenix laughed sinisterly. Zhuo Xiaoduo, how about we make a deal? Zhuo Xiaoduo's expression was as dark as water. A deal? Before you understand the truth, what do you mean by your backup plan? What do you mean by the providence of your phoenix veins, the essence of your ancestors? Is it the essence of the phoenix race? Or the essence of your ancestors? What deal do I have with you? Primordial phoenix, aren't you going to explain the above to me in detail? The primordial phoenix sneered and said, "Of course I have to explain it. Otherwise, how would you ignorant natives know about the shocking situation that our phoenix race has been planning for billions of years? I'd like to hear the details." Back then, the ancestral land was destined to collapse. All the races scattered. Our race had already made arrangements and scattered many seeds. For example, the demon race's vermilion bird, the western sex Mahamyuri, the demon race's dark phoenix, and so on all originated from our race. After that, they each had their own opportunities and formed their own karma. As for Zwishanyan, before we left, we cut off a corner of the phoenix race's providence. We used the only remaining essence core of Patriarch Origin Phoenix as a carrier and left it in the phoenix veins of the ancestral land. It was naturally nurtured and waited for the right time. It could be said to be the biggest part of the plan. Since it's the biggest part of the plan, how could we not be prepared for her? The primordial phoenix said proudly, "We left a trace of the absolute heaven poison in the essence core." The absolute heaven poison. Even the ancestral dragon and ancestral Qilin turned their heads and looked at the primordial phoenix in shock. Clearly, they didn't expect the primordial phoenix to have such a far-reaching plan. This earth-shattering event was simply unheard of. The absolute heaven poison can even kill a saint. The primordial phoenix sneered and looked at Zwishanyan. Zwishanyan sneered. What a shocking situation. What a far-reaching plan. However, do you think that I will believe you just because you casually made up some absolute heaven poison? Apart from the return of the Dark Phoenix, what other mighty figures have returned to your Phoenix race? If you had made arrangements long ago, why didn't you activate the restrictions and force those people to return? A shocking situation, a shocking scam. The primordial Phoenix also sneered. You can choose not to believe me, but use your wife's life as a stake. Zwishanyan squinted his eyes. Unless you bring out the evidence, it's just empty talk. You're just shooting off your mouth. The primordial Phoenix said indifferently, I personally arranged this situation. Naturally, I have evidence. He circulated his energy, and a seven-colored light appeared from the top of his head. Within the light, there was an ice flame. In the center of the ice flame, there was a faint pink light spot. This is the absolute heaven poison. This poison is extremely rare. Zwishanyan is a corner of our race's destiny. We must add the strongest restrictions to her body to prevent a backlash. Now, as long as I crush this pink light spot, even if your wife has the cultivation of a saint, she will immediately die and be consigned to eternal damnation. The primordial Phoenix said indifferently, I know that you're Shao and don't have much knowledge. You can find someone you know to see if I'm bluffing. There was no need to find someone to verify it. Zwishanyan knew that it was true. He had cultivated with Zwishanyan's soul many times, so he naturally knew that this mysterious ice flame and Zwishanyan's ice flame came from the same source. It was true. Looking at the expressions of the ancestral dragon and the ancestral Qilin, Zwishanyan was even more certain that it was not groundless. He pondered and said, Who is Origin Phoenix? The primordial Phoenix's expression was a little ugly. Back then, two phoenixes were naturally born between heaven and earth. The first one was Origin Phoenix. She was from the same period as Lord Pangu. I only appeared after Lord Pangu opened the sky. However, it is not false that I am known as the first phoenix in this world, because Lord Origin Phoenix was born before the sky was opened. After that, Origin Phoenix died. The primordial Phoenix clearly did not want to talk about Origin Phoenix's past in detail and intended to be vague. Zwishanyan sneered and said, Died? How can a chaos creature who was from the same period as God Panga die for no reason? I don't think so, right? You must have used some kind of trick to kill her and occupy the title of the first phoenix. If it weren't for this scheme, I'm afraid you wouldn't even say the two words Origin Phoenix, right? Also, your so-called cloth clan may not be fake, but many of those blood descendants are wandering outside. When they advance to a certain realm, they will naturally understand the past. They will be stupid if they come back. The primordial Phoenix said coldly, These are not the main point. It is irrelevant to talk about these. The main point now is that I have planted a poison in the depths of your wife's soul. Do you understand now? The primordial Phoenix said. Zwishanyan snorted and said, All right, cut the crap. Tell me your conditions. His gaze was cold and hard. and there was killing intent that penetrated her soul. He stared at the primordial phoenix's face like a poisonous snake. The monstrous anger in his heart could not be suppressed. This bastard, he actually used the missing cat to threaten me. However, this move was targeted and hit the place that Xiaoduo cared about the most. He gritted his teeth in hatred, but he did not dare to act rashly. If this poison was planted in Xiaoduo's soul, then the leaders of the three clans in front of him would have been reduced to powder. How could Xiaoduo accept such a threat? However, it had to be on Xiaoyan Yin Zhonghu came over at some point in time. His eyes were about to crack. Primordial Phoenix, to think that you are an ancient mighty figure. Now that the outcome is clear, you actually used such a shameless method to threaten us and try to escape. Do you have any shame? The Primordial Phoenix turned a deaf ear and said indifferently, "What I want will not be overboard. I only want to be able to retreat safely today. We will take the remaining troops away. In the future, we will see. It is more advantageous for you to use this price to exchange for the life of a genius who has the potential to become a saint. As long as we reach a safe distance, I will naturally remove this absolute heaven poison. How about that?" Li Chenglong, who had rushed over, said coldly, "But how can we be sure that you can remove this strange poison that can kill a saint?" His words woke her up from her dream. How could this poison, which was said to be able to kill even a saint, be removed? Just based on the words of a guy whose cultivation had not reached the saint stage? If they were tricked by this guy, wouldn't Xiaoduo and the other higher-ups of the astral souls be extremely stupid? Li Chenglong took a step forward and looked at the pink and indescribably beautiful absolute heaven poison hidden in the ice flames. He said indifferently, "If my judgment is correct, the primordial phoenix, the phoenix head before the creation of the world, died under the absolute heaven poison, right?" The primordial phoenix's pupils constricted as she stared at Li Chenglong. Li Chenglong said, "If we take it a step further, even if the primordial phoenix was poisoned, she would definitely use her entire life's cultivation to resist this poison. In the end, she was still unlucky. After the primordial phoenix died, when you retrieved this poison, you fused it with the primordial phoenix's soul and divided it into two parts to form a bond, and then used this to set up this trap? There's no need to flatter yourself. What do you mean by setting up the clans and shocking the world? Even if you have the intention of setting up the clans, there are not many descendants of the Phoenix clan among the major forces. This is enough to prove that you are not popular. If you had said that all the great cultivators were the descendants of the Phoenix clan would have long been the leader of the clans. Now, why do you need to join forces with the other two clans to attack the astral souls? Only sister-in-law Little Nian was really set up by you. However, the reason why you did this was definitely not just to create a peerless genius who could surpass you and the primordial phoenix, a peerless genius who grew up in the human race and is destined to oppose you. So your original intention was to use the resources of the human race to help you nurture a super fighter? After all, as long as this poison is in your hands, no matter when, as long as you want to use it, you can use it to control sister-in-law Little Nian and threaten the related people who care about sister-in-law Little Nian. Just like today, isn't it? Li Chenglong clapped his hands and said coldly, "This is a good plan, a good scheme, a good scheme. How despicable. Even if there's a chance, just like now, you can still use this to save your life, prolong your life, and even bargain. What a good plan. You used a divine item like the absolute heaven poison to beg for your life." Li Chenglong's sarcasm made the faces of the ancestral dragon, the primordial phoenix, and the primordial Qilin turn red and white. They were almost too ashamed to show their faces. However, the three leaders did not say a word. Now, this was their only chance of survival. Whether they could survive or not depended on whether the absolute heaven poison in the primordial phoenix's hand was effective. The screams in the surroundings were getting fewer and farther away. At this moment, most of the troops of the three clans had been killed. Xiaoduo did not give the order to stop the killing, and neither did Li Chenglong. The primordial phoenix did not ask for anything else and left with his subordinates, because he felt that the sense of danger was getting heavier and heavier, and the suffocating feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Li Chenglong took a deep breath and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo. He transmitted his voice, "Boss, why don't we?" Zhuo Xiaoduo did not say anything, but his expression was getting colder and colder. There was complete silence. After a long, long time, Zhuo Xiaoduo's face contorted in pain. He gritted his teeth and said, "This battle concerns the fate of the astral souls and the human race. The heavenly monarch of the right, Teacher Qin, Wang Lingyun, 5 of the heavenly monarch's protectors, 32 zenith heaven cultivators, 175 chaos prime seniors, more than 8,000 Dao integration cultivators, 153,000 Skyser cultivators, more than 3 million profound convergence cultivators, and more than 30 million below profound convergence cultivators." As he spoke, the rims of his eyes suddenly turned red. He gritted his teeth and said, "The culprit is right in front of us. I can kill them with a raise of my hand. I pray that the tens of millions of souls will not be forgotten. If I, Zhuo Xiaoduo, let go of these 3 executioners whose hands are stained with human blood because of my personal gains and losses, how can I, Zhuo Xiaoduo, face the tombstones that stretch for thousands of miles? Nian Nian Cat is my wife. I can make the decision for her. At most, when the world is peaceful, I'll reunite with my wife." Zhuo Xiaoduo's lips were bleeding. "You want to threaten me? Are you crazy?" As he spoke, he raised his hand to kill. The primordial phoenix shouted, "Wait!" The primordial phoenix raised his hand high, and the pink light in the ice flame flickered even faster. Zhuo Xiaoduo. When he saw Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes become more and more ferocious, he could not help but laugh wildly. Good, good, good. Since you're so righteous, I, the primordial phoenix, will not hesitate to die. I'll take your beautiful wife with me. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of 1,000,000 years of planning?" Before he finished speaking, 2 fingers suddenly exerted force. Clearly, he was detonating the absolute heaven poison. The poison seemed to be in his hand, but it was actually connected to his mind. External forces could not stop it at all. Zhuo Xiaoduo roared angrily and was about to rush forward and kill this person. Right at this moment, a strand of sword light suddenly surpassed the flow of time and the limits of space, and it flashed through the air like a white steed flashing through a gap. Then, a voice sounded indifferently. "I remember telling you not to use this to make a fuss. Why didn't you listen?" The primordial phoenix's 2 fingers moved, and his mind was activated at the same time. It should have been an irreversible explosion, but when his 2 fingers touched each other and his mind was in a daze, he realized that the absolute heaven poison had disappeared. He cried out in disbelief, "Who is it?" Suddenly, a blue-clothed Taoist man appeared beside him. He carried a long sword on his back, and the sleeves of his clothes fluttered in the wind. He had one hand behind his back, and the other hand was fiddling with the absolute heaven poison. What was it? The ice flames jumped, still flickering with inexplicable magnificence. Zhuo Xiaoduo cheered and jumped up, forgetting everything. The person who came had a handsome face and a tall figure. Just by standing there, he seemed to be stepping on the universe. It was the master of the Jie sect, the Grand Master of Heaven, one of the 3 pure ones, perfected enchanting. The primordial phoenix trembled and roared with all his might. "Grand Master of Heaven, you haven't left yet." The Grand Master of Heaven smiled faintly. His eyes were sharp as he said, "Remember that in the Purple Cloud Palace, I told you not to act rashly. I'll protect Xiao Duo and Little Nian." He asked coldly, "Why? Can't you give me face?" The primordial phoenix was so angry that he panted and coughed violently. "Give you face? I'm about to lose my life. How can I give you face?" But now, he couldn't say a word because he was in complete despair. Not only did Grand Master of Heaven's sword take away the absolute heaven poison, but it also cut off the connection between his soul. At the same time, it took away a large part of his soul. And what caused this stunning effect was the immortal slaying sword Chi that was famous in the world. Good, good, good. The primordial phoenix laughed in despair. Grandmaster of Heaven, you are indeed the Grandmaster of Heaven. I admire you. Grandmaster of Heaven held the absolute heaven poison in his hand and said indifferently, Good, of course it's good. It's a pity that you don't even have the right to bicker with me now. Zwakashaoduo roared angrily and raised his sledgehammer high, overflowing with killing intent. Puff, puff, puff. Thousands of hammers were smashed down in succession without any fanciful tricks. The ancestral dragon, the primordial phoenix, and the Qilin did not resist at all. They did not move at all and allowed the hammers to hit them. They were already in despair. No matter how much they struggled, it was useless. Before the primordial phoenix died, he only said coldly, Zwashaoduo, you will never be able to cure your wife's absolute heaven poison. The absolute heaven poison hidden in the depths of her soul will grow stronger with the growth of her cultivation. Her comprehension of the ice flame is the starting point of her journey to the end. It's just a matter of time. Just you wait. Huh? The laughter was smashed by Zwashaoduo and then turned into a piece of minced meat. There was silence in the field. They came with great momentum and were determined to win. The three races of the dragon and phoenix were overturned in one day and eliminated from the world. Their nest. Zwashaoduo would never let it go. Even at this moment, Li Qinglong had already begun to formulate a plan to eliminate all future troubles. After a while, the soldiers of the astral souls were all silently cleaning up the battlefield. They carefully rummaged through the debris on the ground, hoping to find traces of their brother's existence. During the battle, everyone was risking their lives. They were in a precarious situation and had no time to care about how many people had fallen around them. But now that the battle was over, all the survivors regained their senses and rationality. Everyone was heartbroken and in pain. They choked with sobs as tears streamed down their faces. Searching carefully for her, at the edge, Mu Yinyan stood alone, like a soul that would disappear with the wind at any time, an empty soul. Bai Yunduo was not far from her, paying attention to her. She stood alone, and there was no familiar figure beside her. The two familiar figures were nowhere to be seen. Sister Lan had also died in this battle. Now, only a strand of long hair was left when Sister Lan self-destructed. It proved that the woman who had been silent her whole life and sacrificed her whole life had once lived, fought, and existed. Mu Yinyan clutched Sister Lan's hair tightly in her hand, her eyes empty. Now, at this moment, she couldn't find the meaning of continuing to live. She could clearly feel that. This world no longer had anything to do with her. Yu Xingqian, the Emperor of the Star-plucking Emperor, walked over with a complicated expression. After a long time, he sighed softly and said, Mu Yinyan. But Mu Yinyan turned around as if she had been electrocuted and shook her head sadly. I am Mu Yinyan, and I have nothing to do with the heavenly king of the right. Everyone was silent. Mu Yinyan laughed self-deprecatingly and said softly, as if she was talking in a dream, He has already left. His wife is waiting for him over there. No matter if they are alive or dead, they are a pair for life and death, and they are very precious. No matter if it is this life or the next, they are a pair. I have no right to disturb them. Hearing this, Bai Yunduo and Yu Xingqian only felt a sharp pain in their hearts. For a moment, they were speechless and stunned on the spot. Yu Dantian got what he wanted and left without any worries. But Mu Yinyan, who is still alive in this world, would bear endless recollection and pain without any hope. Even more than Yu Dantian and Qin Fanyang, there was only despair, because not only did she never have it, but she also never got it. Not only in this life and this life, even the next life and the next life, she couldn't look forward to and hope. Yu Xingqian scolded with a trembling voice and red eyes. This bastard. In his last moments, he is still harming people. He didn't harm me. He just misses his wife too much. I understand. Mu Yinyan whispered. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame me for having a face that is too similar. I envy the person who has the same face, that's all. Yu Xingqian said with a trembling voice. Child, you should be the reincarnation of Fenghua. Little you shouldn't be mistaken, whether I am or not. It doesn't matter anymore. From now on, it is only Mu Yin, and it can only be Mu Yin. Mu Yin smiled bitterly and said, I'm leaving. Bai Yundua's body trembled. Where are you going? She asked. Mu Yin shook her head blankly. I don't know. The road is under my feet, and I will go wherever I go. Then why do you have to go? If you stay with us, Bai Yunduo was only halfway through her words. Please forgive me. I'm going to be a deserter. Because I really don't know who I should fight for, who I should live for. I don't have any goals anymore. Mu Yin slowly turned around and bowed to the battlefield that was being cleaned. She slowly but firmly kowtowed 3 times. She was a loss. I hate you. You miss your wife, but you came to provoke me. After touching my heart, when I began to try to accept and look forward to the future, you only got an apology in return, and you turned into eternal dust, an immortal star. With your death, perhaps you won't let down everyone in the world. You won't let down your brother. You won't let down Yin Fenghua, and you won't let down the entire continent. But you are worthy of me. Are you worthy of me? Should I hate you? She was at a loss for a moment, then stood up and went away like a ghost. Don't follow me. I'm afraid to see you. I don't want to see any acquaintances, and I don't want to remember those old things. Bai Yunduo chased after her for 2 steps, then stopped in a daze. She understood this sentence very well. In the future, no matter who it was, the people present today, if they appeared in front of Mu Yin, it would be an unspeakable hurt to her that Mu Yin's speed was not fast and could even be said to be very slow. But it was full of an empty atmosphere and determination. From afar, everyone could clearly see that the thing that floated away was just an empty shell. It wasn't a living person. Bai Yunduo watched Mu Yin gradually go further and further away. She actually widened her eyes and looked at her with tears flowing like a spring that as she slowly went further away, Mu Yin's black hair, at a speed visible to the naked eye, gradually turned gray and white, and slowly became the same color as her white clothes dot a field of snow white. Her white hair fluttered in the mournful wind. Finally, she disappeared into the distant wilderness and could no longer be seen. He was like a wandering soul that had permanently dissipated between the heavens and the earth. For a moment, she could not help but feel sad and couldn't help crying bitterly. I left a spiritual imprint on her body. Yu Xingqian said shakily, let this girl calm down for a while, rest for a while. After the war, then, Bai Yunduo shook her head with tears streaming down her face. Along with the shaking of her head, her tears sparkled and scattered everywhere. She did not speak. She did not have the heart to speak, because she knew in this life perhaps no one would be able to find Mu Yin or see Mu Yin. As a woman, she knew Mu Yin's current situation and could understand and empathize with her. Old man, you don't understand women. You don't know, when a woman reaches this step, she is really disheartened and has nothing left to live for. Later, the spiritual imprint that Yu Xingqian left on Mu Yin, for some reason, disappeared without a trace in this world. No one had ever seen Mu Yin again. Until after the war, when the strong people of this world had left this world for a long, long time, that an old lady with white hair and wrinkled skin appeared in Phoenix City's No. 2 high school. No one knew where she came from, and no one knew what her real name was. They only knew that she called herself Ziyin. This old lady Ziyin taught students in Phoenix City's No. 2 high school for a short few years. One day, when the sun rose, purple clouds came from the east, and purple clouds filled the sky. She seemed to suddenly feel something and quietly left Phoenix City's No. 2 high school. Facing the sun, she headed east. From then on, her whereabouts were completely unknown. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.